Chapter 2679, 2679 A Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate Bleeds. Chapter 2679, 2679 A Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate Bleeds. 2679 A Pseudo-Heavenly Venerate Bleeds. Ling Han only sent out a shot of the 5 elements lightning technique, but why did his whole arm explode? That was very simple. It was because not only was he channeling the 5 elements lightning technique, he was also using the divine lightning to boost its power. A heavenly venerate technique could not possibly be channeled constantly. A celestial king could not bear so much power. Before he used it to hurt others, he would kill himself first. If it had been a few days ago, Ling Han truly would not have dared to be so reckless, but his indestructible celestial king physique had already reached great accomplishment level. His physique was only slightly inferior to divine metal, yet this gave him the confidence and courage to make this attempt. Though he was just an ordinary man, his fury was still capable of making a heavenly venerate bleed. Die. Ling Han charged over, boldly and grandly forging onwards without reservations. He Yufeng finally showed a hint of seriousness in his expression. He was proud, but he would definitely not be blindly self-conceited. When this blow from Ling Han was delivered, his first reaction was to avoid a head-on confrontation with it. But who was he? He was a dignified pseudo-heavenly venerate, and to actually have to dodge the attack of a 7th heaven, how could he bear it? Furthermore, if he Yufeng avoided this strike, Ling Han would really have finished all 10 moves. A 7th heaven had made an empty threat in front of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, claiming he could withstand 10 moves, but in the end, he truly turned this into reality. Then how would he Yufeng, the pseudo-heavenly venerate, be able to face others in future? He Yufeng could not dodge. He had to take it head-on, and kill Ling Han with his overwhelming strength. He Yufeng humphed coldly, green ribbons of light entwined around his hands, exuding a pressure that far surpassed the celestial king tier. He pressed his hands down on Ling Han. This clash was earth-shattering. Amu, Du Shi, and Can You all paled in shock. They knew themselves well. If it was they that were receiving this strike from either Ling Han or He Yufeng, they would only be severely injured. The only solution would be to dodge the blow. Taking this attack head-on would only be making things difficult for themselves. But He Yufeng being so strong was logical. What was Ling Han's reason for being so awesome, then? It was inconceivable, it was unimaginable, it was unacceptable. Even Lin Piaoxue showed a hint of surprise, nodding internally. Ling Han being able to send out such a blow was really worthy of the grand words that he had previously said. The fury of even an ordinary man could spill blood in all directions. Boom. The attacks sent out by the 2 great elites finally crashed into each other, forming a great explosion that surpassed regulations. Lin Piaoxue hurriedly moved, suppressing the multiple resulting shock waves. Otherwise, if these shock waves from the clash were allowed to wreak havoc and cause destruction, who knew how many people would be implicated? The majority of them would definitely be killed. It was a terrifying wave of power. Even if Lin Piaoxue had dispelled the major part of the impact, there were still some small ripples that seeped out, causing quite a few people to cough up blood and breaking their bones. They were all astounded. If even a tiny shock wave had been so powerful, then just what kind of terrifying impact had the 2 people at the center of the battle sustained? When the dust settled, Ling Han was still standing where he had been, but not only had his entire right arm exploded, leaving behind only white bone, even his whole upper body had lost all flesh and blood, leaving behind only his skeleton. However, he was still standing steadily, his eyes exuding a fighting spirit that was soaring sky-high, as if he was a supreme divine sword that had just been unsheathed. Looking back at He Yufeng, he was still holding the position of laying down his right hand. His situation was much, much better than Ling Han's. His robes were all neat and tidy, and he practically had not sustained any injury at all. Only a small cut had been inflicted on the palm of his right hand, blood dripping slowly from it. Seeing this scene, everyone went numb with shock. He Yufeng had been wounded. He Yufeng had actually been wounded. A pseudo-heavenly venerate, faced with a 7th heaven celestial king, had actually been wounded by his opponent, and was bleeding. Good heavens! Everyone was not concerned that Ling Han's wounds were more serious and what kind of price he had paid. They were only aware that a pseudo-heavenly venerate had been wounded by a seventh heaven celestial king. This was a miracle that had never happened. This was a grand feat that no one had ever dared to imagine was possible. Ling Han was the one who had performed this miracle, and He Yufeng? He was destined to become an eternal afternote that would accompany Ling Han for his whole life. In the future, when anyone spoke of the grand feat that Ling Han had performed today, they would speak of He Yufeng as well, using his humiliation to show off just how freakish Ling Han was. This was Ling Han's fury as an ordinary man. Amazing, his fury was capable of making a pseudo-heavenly venerate bleed. Was there any other seventh heaven that could do the same? Heavenborn? No, he would only be able to ensure that he did not lose, at most. Du Shi, Amu, can you? Perhaps if they presently exploded with ultimate moves, they could exchange it for a drop of blood from a pseudo-heavenly venerate, but when they had been only in the seventh heaven, that would have been merely a delusion. Ling Han smiled evenly, the blood and flesh of his body regrowing at an astonishing speed. The reason why he had come off so badly was actually mostly due to the conflict between the two heavenly venerate techniques inside his body, so this was considered self-inflicted injury. It would recover very quickly. Now, with the circulation of the indestructible heavens scroll, added with how Ling Han also had void particle energy, his recovery was naturally extraordinarily quick. Lord He, thank you for the guidance. He clasped his fists together. Though Ling Han was speaking very politely, He Yufeng felt his face burn. He knew that he was going to become an eternal joke, juxtaposed with Ling Han to show how freakish Ling Han was. He Yufeng's eyes burned with rage, killing intent blazing. He was going to kill Ling Han. He would definitely not allow him to leave this place alive. When others saw Ling Han in the future, they would speak of his great achievement today, and then step harshly on He Yufeng as well. That was definitely not allowed. He Yufeng was a man that was destined to become a heavenly venerate. How could he carry such a stain on his name? Die! He Yufeng roared in fury, green light surging from both his hands, and pressing down on Ling Han. Ling Han was freakish. Not only had he clashed with a pseudo-heavenly venerate for 10 moves, he had even wounded the former, but after 10 moves, he was also at the end of the line. How could he now be able to block the vengeful counterattack of a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Yet Ling Han did not panic in the least, and merely looked calmly back at the other party. He Yufeng, you have gone too far. Lin Piaoxue moved. Her jade-like arms moved lightly, her fingers like plucked flowers. She looked like she did not hold any internal heat at all, but the might she displayed was extraordinary. Peng! She easily sent He Yufeng into retreat. Though both of them were pseudo-heavenly venerates, He Yufeng had just advanced to this cultivation level, while it was possible that Lin Piaoxue was about to advance to the next cultivation level. The gap in power between the two of them was extremely wide. He Yufeng took over 100 steps back before finally regaining his footing. His face was completely crimson due to the impact from the blow delivered by Lin Piaoxue, as well as fury. Was it really so difficult for a pseudo-heavenly venerate to kill a puny seventh heaven? You truly wish to offend our He clan for the sake of this brat? He Yufeng demanded menacingly. Hearing his words, Du Shi and the others shook their heads. With He Yufeng saying this, he meant to use his old man, He Rong, to exert pressure. They were all top-tier prodigies, and their own strength was their true foundation, the true basis for their pride and confidence. Yet He Yufeng had placed his old man on the table now. This actually was him admitting his own incompetence. This naturally garnered their disdain. Immediately, they removed He Yufeng from the list of people who could be their equal. Lin Piaoxue's pretty face was calm, her complexion fairer than snow. It was as if there was no life to her at all. She looked at He Yufeng, her eyes holding a slightly strange look, as if they were filled with sympathy. If you do not want to trifle with our He clan, leave immediately, He Yufeng demanded, pointing at the doors. Sigh, what a dumb brat. A voice rang out slowly. Big brother. The large black dog immediately jumped up. It was the black donkey. The black donkey walked over slowly. He maintained a human-like posture, his 2 front legs crossed behind him and his round belly exposed. His sleazy appearance was not much better than the large black dog's. Greetings, Lord Divine Donkey. Everyone hurriedly bowed in greeting, and even He Yufeng was no exception. Chapter 2680, 2680 Competing in Fathers. Chapter 2680, 2680 Competing in Fathers. 2680 Competing in Fathers. The black donkey was a heavenly venerate, not a pseudo-heavenly venerate. So what if He Yufeng had escaped the binds of regulations? The rule that would never disappear and that would exist eternally was only the strong would be respected. Everyone lowered their heads and paid their respects to the black donkey. Even Lin Piaoxue curtsied slightly. "Uncle Donkey! Uncle Donkey!" The black donkey walked over. Pa! He kicked out a hoof at He Yufeng, sending him onto the ground. He Yufeng was furious. For better or worse, he was also a pseudo-heavenly venerate, not much inferior to the black donkey, but the latter actually dared to humiliate him like this. "Damn brat, I am saving you here." The black donkey stretched out a hoof to step on He Yufeng's face. "If your father knew about this, he would probably have to send me flowers to thank me." Everyone's mouth twitched. This donkey was really caustic. He had already stepped on the other person, yet was actually still declaring that this was for the latter's own good. He Yufeng was naturally mad with fury. He swore that he would definitely inform his father of this. "No matter how good your relationship with Juheng is, you still can't treat me like this." The black donkey snickered and rapped his hoof on He Yufeng's head. "Brat, you are still not giving up. Fine then. I will let you die satisfied. You are using your own father to exert pressure on others, but do you know who her father is?" he asked, pointing at Lin Piaoxue. Everyone couldn't help but prick their ears in anticipation, filled with curiosity. They also very much wanted to know what Lin Piaoxue's background was. To think that no one actually knew the origins of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, this kind of mystery would garner incredible curiosity in the first place. "Who?" He Yufeng asked stubbornly. "Competing in fathers with others, Sai, you are truly too naive." The black donkey still kept them hanging. Only once everyone's neck was stretched out extensively did he finally say slowly, "This little girl's father has the surname Lin." No kidding. Everyone was thinking this. Of course, not one of them dared to say this out loud. "And his going by the name Xiaoyang," the black donkey continued calmly. "Lin Xiaoyang. Hiss, the 6th-tier heavenly venerate, Lord Lin Xiaoyang. Then that means, wouldn't Lord Lin Luo then be her grandfather?" The Lin clan, Lin Luo is a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, and his son Lord Lin Xiaoyang is a 6th-tier heavenly venerate. His two disciples, Lord Ju Heng and Lord Yang Chu Hao, are both 6th-tier heavenly venerates as well. He is a legend among legends. Competing in background with her, haha, this is truly hilarious. In the whole Genesis world, what other force can compare with the Lin clan? There may be some, but it definitely is not the He clan. Some were whispering quietly among themselves, but there were also others that did not have such reservations. That was because they, too, had 3rd-tier, 4th-tier, or even 5th-tier heavenly venerate elders backing them up. What did they have to fear if it was just a few words of evaluation? Hiss, another pseudo-heavenly venerate has emerged from the Lin clan. Then, many years later, they would have another heavenly venerate. This is only Lord Lin Xiaoyang's daughter. I heard that Lord Lin Luo has a daughter as well. Though she was born countless years after Lin Xiaoyang, her natural talent is not the slightest bit weak, either. Perhaps she, too, has long since become a heavenly venerate. The strength of the Lin clan has reached an unimaginable height. He Yufeng also heard everyone's words, and felt extremely embarrassed and angered, yet he did not have the slightest intention to refute what they were saying. Indeed, compared with the Lin clan, any other force was trash. A 7th-tier heavenly venerate, 3 6th-tier heavenly venerates, any one of them would be able to conquer more than half of the Genesis world. If he truly became enemies with the Lin clan, his old man would probably kill him with his own hands, and then bring his head as a token of apology to the Lin clan. "Dumb brat, now do you know that I am saving you?" the black donkey asked. He Yufeng had to admit that it was indeed possible that the black donkey had resolved a danger for him, but using his hoof to step on his face was clearly a deliberate act to humiliate him. The donkey was completely capable of saying this nicely and politely, right? "Brother Ling, Please come with me. Father wishes to meet you. Lin Piaoxue finally spoke, addressing Ling Han. She ignored He Yufeng completely. Perhaps a mere pseudo-heavenly venerate was not even worthy of her saying a few more words as far as she was concerned. He Yufeng lowered his head, his heart filled with resentment. This kind of disregard made him feel even worse than the black donkey humiliating him. However, he dared not resent Lin Piaoxue at all. The Lin clan was a colossal force that he definitely could not afford to trifle with. Hence, he relocated all his hatred and fury onto Ling Han. This was the real culprit. He Yufeng was determined to kill Ling Han. Ling Han first nodded at Lin Piaoxue, then looked towards He Yufeng, and said, Lord He, what you have bestowed on me today, I will remember dearly. In the future, I will definitely repay you. This naturally was not repaying kindness, but seeking vengeance. A mere seventh heaven. He Yufeng clenched his fists tightly, but he naturally could not be bothered to argue with Ling Han. If a pseudo-heavenly venerate still had to argue, that would be too demeaning of him. He merely humphed, and said, If I ever see you again, that will be the time of your death. Ling Han continued to express his thanks to the two celestial kings of the Wang clan, and only then did he exit the abode with the large black dog. Come. Lin Piaoxue led the way, bringing Ling Han and the large black dog towards her vehicle. Shockingly, it was the carriage that was pulled by that yellow ox formed of divine metal. Ling Han and the large black dog exchanged a look, and both of them thanked their good luck. Thankfully, they had not really gone off to knock out the owner secretly. Otherwise, they would have crashed into a steel plate, and would probably have been thrashed in return by now. Senior Donkey, is the matter of the Celestial King graveyard already resolved? Ling Han asked the black donkey. These days, Ling Han either would be cultivating in seclusion, or he would be concocting alchemical pills. He had not met the black donkey yet. The black donkey shook his head. That brat had run off really quickly. When Ju Heng arrived, that place was already completely empty. Who knows where they had all run off to? Ling Han frowned. This was truly a lurking peril. The process of advancing to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier had been interrupted. This would definitely have serious effects. However, even if it was just ninth heaven celestial kings, with so many of them appearing at the same time, the destruction they could cause would also be incredibly frightening. Even if the sky fell down on us, there would be someone taller to hold it up. Just rest your worries and focus on cultivation. What is important now is to increase your strength as soon as possible, the black donkey said. Ling Han nodded. This time, He Yufeng had used his strength as a pseudo-heavenly venerate to bully Ling Han, so the latter was infuriated, but it also filled him with fighting spirit at the same time. He was eager to increase his strength. The black donkey left, and Ling Han and the large black dog boarded the carriage. Celestial Maiden Lin, hearing your words, your father wishes to help me advance my cultivation level? Ling Han asked. Correct. Lin Piaoxue nodded. Then, can I bring a few more people with me? Ling Han immediately started bargaining. Who was Lin Xiaoyang? The son of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate, and he himself was also a 6th-tier heavenly venerate. When this kind of mighty figure said that he wanted to help Ling Han advance his cultivation level, it was definitely not just a joke. A good opportunity naturally could not be missed. Lin Piaoxue was surprised, and after being taken aback for a moment, she said, You may, but it is not everyone that can tolerate this kind of training. Let's give it a try. Ling Han invited the Rain Emperor. He naturally could not leave his brother out of this. Then, he also brought the Empress and bewitching Maiden Ru with him. They were his wives. Additionally, the large black dog naturally would not be missing out on such benefits. Thus, the 4 people and 1 dog all rode in Lin Piaoxue's carriage, setting off to the Lin clan. On the way there, since they had some idle time, Ling Han couldn't help but ask, Celestial Maiden Lin has not enrolled into the martial academy? No. Though Lin Piaoxue had an astonishingly powerful background, she did not put on any airs at all. As gentle as water, she replied, Actually, descendants of truly great clans would not be enrolling into the martial academy. When they have trained to a certain extent in the clan, they would be sent to battle in the realm battlefield. As long as they can survive, their future prospects will be quite good as well. Just like her. Ling Han couldn't help but perk up. He had already heard of a great many things regarding the realm battlefield. All of a sudden, he really wanted to take a look there. Chapter 2681, 2681 Pool of 9 Deaths. Chapter 2681, 2681 Pool of 9 Deaths. 2681 Pool of 9 Deaths. If you go to the realm battlefield now, it is still too soon, Lin Piaoxue said seriously. The cruelty of the realm battlefield far surpasses your imagination. You must make even more adequate preparations. Ling Han nodded, and made no further mention of the realm battlefield. The carriage traveled very quickly. With a creature made of divine metal as horsepower, the speed was naturally amazing. It traveled from one spatial plane to the next, and they arrived at a mountain range over a dozen days later. After entering a specific doorway, the initially endless chain of mountains became even vaster, as if they had entered into a different world. They all disembarked from the carriage, and the golden ox sprawled out lazily, appearing extremely relaxed. The 5 of them strolled slowly onwards. There were structures on every mountain peak, and they could occasionally glimpse children laughing. They were not shy at all. Instead, they kept looking at Ling Han and the others, and the large black dog became the main focus of their attention. After all, it was extremely rare to see such a sleazer-looking dog wearing a pair of iron underwear. Aunt Xue, who are they? Aunt Xue, you're back. Great Aunt Xue, did you bring any nice food for us? The children all gathered round, chattering excitedly. Lin Piaoxue was as gentle as water. As she took out some things to distribute to these kids, she proceeded to make introductions for Ling Han and the others, about who this was, and who that was. This was where the Lin clan was, but it was not just the Lin clan. It also included the relatives of the Lin clan. For example, Lin Piaoxue's maternal relatives all lived here. The members of the Lin clan numbered approximately in hundreds of thousands. There were countless celestial kings in the Lin clan, but there were only about 10 who had reached the heavenly venerable tier, which was a pitifully small number. With the guidance of a 7th tier heavenly venerate, the number of heavenly venerates was still that small. This showed just how hard it was to become a heavenly venerate. Led by Lin Piaoxue, Ling Han met with Lin Xiaoyang. This was the eldest son of Lin Luo, as well as the present clan leader of the Lin clan. Lin Luo, meanwhile, was constantly standing guard in the realm battlefield. A 7th tier heavenly venerate was the main force in defense against hysteria, so how could he possibly find the time to come back? Lin Xiaoyang looked to be in his 20s. He was young and handsome, and had a slender build. He did not exude the slightest pressure, and looked as ordinary as any other person. This was what it truly meant to return to one's true self. Greetings, Senior. Ling Han bowed respectfully. The Rain Emperor, bewitching Maiden Ru, and the large black dog paid their respects as well, and even the Empress suppressed her pride, and curtsied slightly. Lin Xiaoyang's temperament was very similar to that of his daughter, nonchalant and calm, as if he could never get angry. He waved a hand dismissively, and said, I have heard a lot about you. You are quite impressive. I, as well as junior brother Ju, both have very great expectations of you. To think a 6th tier heavenly venerate would actually offer such high praise. If this was known to others, Ling Han would definitely become famous instantly. I am not the type that enjoys listening to pleasantries. If you wish to repay me, then advance your cultivation level as soon as possible, Lin Xiaoyang said. I have already opened the pool of 9 deaths for you. Piaoxue will bring all of you inside and explain how to use it. A 6th tier heavenly venerate was naturally very busy. Ling Han and the others all nodded. It was already very kind that Lin Xiaoyang had managed to find some time to meet with them. Lin Piaoxue led them away, and they very soon arrived at a mountain peak. There was a pool at the summit, and it was emitting green-colored fog filled with herbal essence. This is the pool of 9 deaths, Lin Piaoxue said. Ling Han and the others were all surprised. This pool was filled with the aura of life, so it should be called the pool of life. Why would it be named the pool of 9 deaths instead? Lin Piaoxue shook her head. All creations of the heaven and earth are amazing. In extreme death, life would be nurtured, and in extreme life, a great killing intent would also be hidden. She paused. At the bottom of this pool, there is a divine tree. It was the origin of wood that transcended Tao and rushed to the height of ninth heaven. Unfortunately, it garnered the jealousy of heaven and earth, and when it attempted to break through to the heavenly venerable tier, it failed and died. The essence of the divine tree is abundant, and is a supremely valuable medicine, but when the divine tree died, it was struck by the lightning of heaven and earth, so a boundless killing intent is also concealed within it. Afterwards, this pool was further refined by our clan elder, who inserted a considerable number of great herbs. Along with the power of a seventh-tier heavenly venerate, the herbal essence in it has become more and more amazing. However, at the same time, the killing intent concealed within has also become more and more violent. If you enter, there is only a very narrow chance of survival, Lin Piaoxue said solemnly. However, if you can survive the killing intent within the medicinal effects, the benefits will also be boundless. Ling Han looked towards the Empress, bewitching Maiden Ru, and the Rain Emperor. The three of them nodded at him. Why do you not look at Grandpa Dog? The large black dog howled. Do you people think that Grandpa Dog is the type to be afraid of death? We will remember this kindness deeply. Ling Han and the others all said to Lin Piaoxue, ignoring the large black dog completely. Lin Piaoxue nodded. It is all for the sake of the world. With the strength of the Lin clan, they actually no longer needed the gratitude of Ling Han and the others. Their motive was very simple, to oppose hysteria. You can enter into the pool to cultivate, and I will stand guard for all of you, she continued. Ling Han and the others were not reserved at all as they entered into the pool. Instantly, an extremely massive wave of life energy surged into their bodies, pushing their cultivation upwards quickly. Splash! The large black dog also jumped in. Damn dog, you are already at the peak stage of the ninth heaven. What have you come down for? I just want to absorb some nutrients. There's nothing bad about having some more, the large black dog answered shamelessly. Everyone was already long accustomed to how shameless the large black dog could be, so they did not say anything else, but rather concentrated on absorbing the energy inside the pool waters. But very quickly, their expressions changed. This energy was too violent. At the beginning, they could still tolerate it, but it very soon became a destructive tsunami that was raging violently in their bodies, practically crushing their bodies with extreme force. This was not just a feeling. Very soon, they discovered marks of blood appearing on their bodies. That was a sign that the blood vessels in their bodies had burst. You must stay a full day inside the pool, or not only would it not be beneficial at all, it would instead result in harm, Lin Piaoxue said from the sidelines. Fuck, Grandpa Dog has been tricked. If I had known about this, I would not have come in, the large black dog yowled. He was already at the peak stage of the ninth heaven, so it was impossible that he would improve any further. He was just too greedy, and could not bear to see others benefit while he could only watch from the sidelines. Thus, he very shamelessly came down with them, and as a result, he was suffering for nothing. Ling Han and the others were all holding on with gritted teeth, continuously absorbing the medicinal effects, and turning them into progress for their cultivation level. After a day, the 4 people and 1 dog hurriedly leaped out, all of them panting endlessly, especially the large black dog. He was even tearing up. Come, attack me, Lin Piaoxue said. You guys need to move about to activate the medicinal effects completely. Otherwise, this kind of violent medicinal effect will accumulate in your bodies, and exert a very strong effect on you. The 4 humans and 1 dog exchanged looks, and all of them moved, launching an offensive towards Lin Piaoxue. Though she looked unearthly, she was a dignified, great pseudo-heavenly venerate. If she really became serious, she would not need too many moves to wipe them all out. Now, it was just to help Ling Han and the others move around for a bit, so Lin Piaoxue naturally would not go all out. Instead, she used herself as a target, and no matter how the 5 great elites ganged up on her, she merely dispersed their attacks, and would not counter. They fought for a whole 10 days before she finally called a halt. Ling Han and the others inspected themselves, and discovered that their cultivation level had actually progressed slightly. It was really a very tiny, small step forwards, and was a little negligible. However, to have such progress in just 10 days was extremely shocking. Chapter 2682, 2682 Peak of the Eighth Heaven. Chapter 2682, 2682 Peak of the Eighth Heaven. 2682 Peak of the Eighth Heaven. The medicinal effects had been refined, and the next step would be to enter into the pool of 9 deaths again to absorb some more. However, the facial expressions of the 4 people and 1 dog were extremely ugly. One couldn't just look at the exhilaration brought about by the increase in cultivation level, it was also extremely painful. They felt like they were almost about to collapse. No one would wish to experience it for a second time. Moreover, the pool of 9 deaths wasn't simply an exaggeration. A moment of carelessness would really cause death. Ling Han jumped in first. Needless to say, just thinking about He Yufeng's overbearing and domineering expression gave Ling Han endless motivation to trample on this bastard. This required strength, and the pool of 9 deaths would be able to give him strength. So what if he had to go through pain? After Ling Han, the Rain Emperor entered the pool without the slightest hesitation, followed by the Empress. She might be extremely tsunda, but her heart's desire to pursue strength was also extremely tenacious. Bewitching maiden Ru hesitated. She really wanted to be strong, but the thought of the pain she had endured before made her back down. The increase in cultivation level. There was no hurry, since there would always be Ling Han anyway. The large black dog was determined not to go into the pool. He had already been deceived once, so he definitely wouldn't want to go through it again. Lin Piaoxue then said, "Although you are at the peak of the 9th heaven, this pool of 9 deaths will still do you good. It can enhance your battle prowess and make it more refined." The large black dog grimaced, but after considering it for quite some time, he eventually entered the pool again. "It hurts Grandpa Dog to death. What kind of sin has Grandpa Dog committed?" he cried out loudly. Lin Piaoxue was utterly speechless. How could there be such a shameless guy? If you couldn't bear it, then you could choose not to enter, and yet after you entered the pool, you still kept screaming like a banshee. It really made one speechless. Everyone absorbed the medicinal effects for 1 day, and then used the next 10 days to refine the medicinal effects. Their cultivation soared. Half a year, 1 year, 10 years. Time flew. After more than 30 years, Lin Piaoxue stopped keeping watch over them because she found that the 3 people and 1 dog not only had great perseverance, but also top-notch strength and natural talent, and could completely withstand being washed by the medicinal effects. Furthermore, the group of 4 including Ling Han could also battle one another to refine the medicinal effects, and no longer needed her to keep watch over them all the time. She was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. It was already enough that she had stood guard over them for more than 30 years. Ling Han and the others continued to cultivate, enduring the suffering inflicted upon their bodies, and marching forward despite going through extreme difficulties. During this period, the 4 of them had experienced several dangerous obstacles which nearly cost them their lives. Fortunately, their willpower was extremely strong, and they survived. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, and finally 700,000 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Ling Han had reached the peak of the 7th heaven, and was qualified to charge towards the 8th heaven. There was no need to temper his foundations any longer, as the 4 were experiencing life and death situations on a daily basis, so their foundations were naturally solid. There was also no need to have a trigger for their breakthrough, as they were engaging in battles almost every day. Moreover, their evolution index was either 11 or 12, so breaking through was naturally something that was only a matter of course. Ling Han took his leave. Further was to go through his tribulation. His 8th heaven tribulation already possessed the power of the peak of the 9th heaven, but this was basically the limit. When Ling Han broke through to the 9th heaven in the future, the tribulation that he would go through might only be at this level. Even if the might of the tribulation would be slightly greater than this, there was no way it would be much greater. Kwong. Heaven and earth exhibited its power to stop Ling Han from going 1 step further. However, since Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible celestial king physique to great accomplishments level, his physique was only slightly worse off than divine metal. Heavenly tribulation could strike him until he was drenched in blood, but that would be about it. It wouldn't be able to go any further. 1 day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Yet Ling Han did not show any sign of relaxing. Even at the 8th heaven, he was still unable to contend with a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so he still needed to continue improving. Back at the Pool of Nine Deaths, Ling Han buried himself in cultivation. Hundreds of thousands of years later, the Empress and the Rain Emperor broke through respectively. Time flew. 7 million years later, Ling Han had advanced his cultivation to the peak of the 8th heaven, but he had encountered a bottleneck, and was unable to push through the doors to reach the 9th heaven. On the contrary, the Empress and the Rain Emperor were making great progress, and they were about to catch up to him in cultivation level. Little Han, 9th heaven is the limit of the regulations. This level is not so easy to break through, the large black dog said. You need to experience the world and understand the regulations before you can take this final step. Ling Han nodded. Monarch stars would be able to enter the 9th heaven without any difficulty, but this did not mean that he could watch his cultivation level soar just by sitting still. One would still need to go through the necessary route, and the required process could not be dispensed with. It was just that for some people, even if they were to take such a route, they might never be able to reach the end, and yet Ling Han could not only walk smoothly, but also reach the end very quickly. Grandpa Dog is almost finished here. It's time for us brothers to go out. Brat, when you reach the 9th heaven, you will probably be able to battle even pseudo-heavenly venerates, the large black dog roared. Defeat that little bastard He Yufeng. He has only entered the pseudo-heavenly venerate realm slightly earlier, there's nothing great about it. Ling Han nodded, and decided to leave with the large black dog first, whereas the Empress, Bewitching Maiden Ru, and the Rain Emperor would continue with their cultivation here. Bewitching Maiden Ru would occasionally enter the Pool of Nine Deaths for cultivation, but the time that she spent entering once was enough for the others to enter more than a dozen times, so the increase in her cultivation level was far from that of Ling Han and the others. The Empress and the others agreed that Ling Han and the large black dog would leave and return to the Martial Academy first. After more than 10 days of traveling in haste, the duo returned to the Martial Academy. In the blink of an eye, more than 7 million years had passed, and the great commotion caused by Ling Han previously had naturally subsided a long time ago. However, when people occasionally noted the names of Zhong San or Li Sai on the Eternal Stone, it would make people lament that there had once been an extremely impressive character with the cultivation level of 7th heaven who had injured a pseudo-heavenly venerate within the Martial Academy. Of course, if not for the people who were present at that time, most of the others would still doubt the incident's authenticity. How could a 7th heaven celestial king hurt a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Ling Han and the large black dog were very low-key, and quietly entered the Martial Academy without attracting anyone's attention. However, the Martial Academy was only so big, and no matter how low-key the team of one person and one dog was, they were still noticed, and this soon caused a wave within the Martial Academy. However, the grand event that everyone had anticipated, for Ling Han to battle against He Yufeng once again, did not take place, as He Yufeng had left the Martial Academy millions of years ago already, and it was said that he had gone to the realm battlefield. He Yufeng had naturally been aggravated, but it was definitely not because of Ling Han. No matter how freakish a 7th heaven celestial king was, it wouldn't make him have a sense of urgency. Rather, it was due to Lin Piaoxue, who was also a pseudo-heavenly venerate. He Yufeng felt incomparably small in front of Lin Piaoxue, which prompted him to firmly resolve himself to go to the realm battlefield, seeking to improve his battle prowess through bloody battles. That bastard should consider himself lucky, otherwise Grandpa Dog would surely beat him to death, the large black dog shouted, after he breathed out a sigh of relief. Ling Han shook his head. Although our strength has improved by leaps and bounds, it is still impossible to overcome the obstacle that is the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. We are definitely not He Yufeng's match. At that time, Ling Han had used 2 heavenly venerate techniques at the same time at the cost of injuring himself, but it had merely caused He Yufeng to sustain a slight injury and bleed a little. Given that he had now advanced his cultivation level to the next level, He Yufeng would be slightly more injured at most. Furthermore, He Yufeng had taken the blow because he had been afraid of losing face at the time, while he could have dodged it completely in reality. If Ling Han was to fight He Yufeng again, would the other party still be limited by an agreement of 10 moves? However, as long as I can make it to 9th heaven, Ling Han's eyes flashed with cold light. At that time, he would have no fear of even a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Chapter 2683, 2683 Divine Demon Sword Undergoes Tribulation. Chapter 2683, 2683 Divine Demon Sword Undergoes Tribulation. 2683 Divine Demon Sword Undergoes Tribulation. Ling Han believed that when he reached the ninth heaven, he would have the strength to battle against a pseudo-heavenly venerate. This was because he had been tempered by void particle energy all this while. In fact, he had long been a pseudo-heavenly venerate, but it was unknown how large the gap in strength between him as a pseudo-heavenly venerate and a real pseudo-heavenly venerate was. However, once Ling Han entered the ninth heaven, and he wouldn't even need to reach the peak, he would then truly be able to stand on the same level as a pseudo-heavenly venerate. And should he reach the peak of the ninth heaven, then he would become a pseudo-heavenly venerate through and through, with the ability to absolutely crush other pseudo-heavenly venerates. Why was this? This was because other pseudo-heavenly venerates used the unique power of heaven and earth to temper their bodies, but Ling Han used void particle energy. Void particle energy was one of the 6 fundamental powers of the Genesis world, and was naturally more powerful than the said unique power. This was superiority in terms of quality. The problem now was that Ling Han had to break through to the ninth heaven first. Soon, a visitor from the Wang clan arrived again. It was still Wang Yangming, who continued to cooperate with Ling Han on behalf of the Wang clan. After millions of years, the Wang clan had collected sufficient divine metal. You actually broke through to the 8th heaven? Wang Yangming was stunned. He knew that Ling Han was extremely freakish, and his strength was so powerful that he could even injure a pseudo-heavenly venerate, but now this guy advanced from the 7th heaven to the 8th heaven within 10 million years. This speed was indeed overwhelming. Ling Han nodded, and didn't say that he had actually reached the peak of the 8th heaven, and was only one step away from breaking through to the 9th heaven. What he lacked now was just an opportunity. The two chatted for a while. Ling Han once again expressed his gratitude to the Wang clan, while Wang Yangming also expressed his hope to have a deeper cooperation with Ling Han and to forge a deeper relationship, for example by marrying a certain little princess of their clan, causing Ling Han's face to involuntarily darken. Damn, it has been so long ago, but the Wang clan still hasn't forgotten about it. After Wang Yangming left, Ling Han began to upgrade the divine demon sword. This time round, the Wang clan had sent over a dozen pieces of divine metal in one go, which should be enough for the divine demon sword to advance to the next level. After learning that news, the large black dog was also very excited, and ran over to witness the event. As Ling Han took out the divine demon sword, the devouring metal activated instinctively, and it immediately began to devour the divine metal. In the face of devouring metal, as tough as divine metal was, it could only be easily swallowed, and as the essence in it was completely extracted, it turned into dust. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. As more and more divine metal was swallowed by the divine demon sword, this celestial tool exuded a blazing light, and ancient characters started to appear, but they could not be deciphered. Little Han, don't miss out a single word. The large black dog opened his eyes wide. This is the heavenly venerable seals, a language that only heavenly venerates can understand, and it can communicate with the fundamental power of the Genesis world. However, the heavenly venerates can understand it, but can't manifest it. Only when devouring metal is upgraded to the heavenly venerable tier will it stimulate the heaven and earth, which will manifest these supreme characters. Ling Han hurriedly widened his eyes with rapt attention. He quickly discovered that the indestructible Heaven Scrolls contents that he had seen on the Black Tower were somewhat similar to these characters, but they were far less complicated and profound. The heavenly venerates naturally had a glimpse of the essence of the Genesis world, and the amazing techniques which they created might be a different approach leading to the same desired effect. It was just that karmic life heavenly venerable had merely taken only one step, after all, so at most he would have gotten insight into some kind of fundamental power of the celestial realm, so the technique which he had created was not as profound as this. But thanks to this, the karmic life heavenly venerable could pass down the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Otherwise, even a heavenly venerate wouldn't be able to write it down. Ling Han couldn't understand it at all, but he gained a lot of insight because he realized that as long as such characters floated in his mind, the efficiency of the void particle energy within him increased many times over. It originally took 1,000 years to sense and extract a void particle, but now it would only take 10 years. It had actually increased by 100-fold. This was mighty amazing indeed. Ling Han was overjoyed at the unexpected turn of events. Even if these characters of the Heavenly Venerate had no other effect, and just improved his ability to sense a void particle, it was already enough. Boom! The divine demon's sword suddenly released immeasurable celestial light, tearing the sky apart. The surging of thunderclouds could be seen, and the heavenly tribulation was quickly taking shape. Little Han, run quickly, a Heavenly Venerate tool will face a tribulation, and with our strength, staying nearby is courting death. The large black dog quickly grabbed Ling Han and ran, his face turning white with fright. Ling Han didn't dare to hesitate, and immediately ran after him. Xiao, the divine demon's sword shot straight into the sky, facing the heavenly tribulation. There were bursts of lightning, falling towards the divine demon's sword one after another, very close in timing and extremely terrifying. 1,000 instances of tempering, surpassing the level of divine metal. The large black dog sighed. In the past, Grandpa Dog has seen the karmic life Heavenly Venerable refine the Tower of Three Realms, but at that time, the Lord became a Heavenly Venerate, so he could help the Tower of Three Realms fight against the heavenly tribulation together, but now it is all up to the divine demon sword itself. If it can survive, it will truly transcend. Failing, it will turn into dust. Ling Han said nothing, he just looked up at the sky with a firm resolve in his eyes. Ling Han believed that the divine demon sword would definitely be able to survive because it was a precious tool that he had refined himself. With it following him all the way for so many years, his character had been completely integrated into it. Hence, the more setbacks it encountered, the stronger it would become. A Heavenly Venerate tool was facing tribulation, so the commotion was so great that the entire martial academy was alerted. Even the two Heavenly Venerates who were in charge also opened their eyes and looked into the sky. The layers of bricks and tiles could not block their vision. There is going to be another new Heavenly Venerate tool emerging. That's strange, there is no third Heavenly Venerate here. Could it be that this Heavenly Venerate tool was actually refined by a celestial king? How daring! Are they not fearful of the ruthless heavenly tribulation blasting the core of the precious tool to smithereens, leaving nothing? The two Heavenly Venerates sighed, and then withdrew their gazes. They were veteran Heavenly Venerates. Naturally, they had already refined Heavenly Venerate tools in their own realms, and would not have any ideas about the divine demon sword. Of course, had it not been for the fight against hysteria, which made all the Heavenly Venerates put aside their prejudices and come together, then they would definitely have taken action to snatch the sword. Who would think that having another Heavenly Venerate tool would be too much? One day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. The divine demon sword fell from the sky, with only 1/3 of the blade remaining, and the whole thing appeared dull and dim. Sure enough, without the master's support, it couldn't survive. The two Heavenly Venerates opened their eyes again, and shook their heads. Others in the martial academy had also witnessed it. Even if not all of them recognized this to be a Heavenly Venerate tool facing tribulation, they were also thinking that the divine demon sword had failed to ascend to the next level, and naturally no longer paid any attention to it. This world had always been like this, only the successful would be famous for an eternity, while losers would only be immediately swept into the dust of history. The divine demon sword fell and landed beside Ling Han's feet, the whole blade appearing dull and having lost all its consciousness. It actually failed. The large black dog was filled with disappointment. He had been looking forward to the advancement of the divine demon sword, and that it would suppress Heavenborn in the future, releasing the spirit of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. This had already become his obsession, but now that divine demon sword failed to advance to the next level, it naturally made him extremely disappointed. Ling Han bent down, picked up the divine demon sword, and shook his head, saying, "I don't believe it would fail." He possessed such confidence. First, it was because the heavenly tribulation had lasted for a whole day, so the divine demon sword had indeed survived the heavenly tribulation. Second, this was something that was integrated with his martial intent, his firm and indomitable conviction, so how could it fail? Chapter 2684, 2684 Yun Aokong. Chapter 2684, 2684 Yun Aokong. 2684 Yun Aokong. The large black dog grabbed the divine demon sword and looked it over repeatedly, yet ended up shaking his head. There is no life to it at all anymore. He gave a flick with his paw. Pa. A section of the blade fell down just like that, and with a stomp from him, it immediately turned into dust. This toughness. Just how many times was it inferior to divine metal? Ling Han took the sword from him and circulated his divine sense carefully through it. As expected, this divine sword that had originally been filled with life and sharpness had become dead and heavy. There was not the slightest sliver of reaction from it, and it had also lost the sturdy structure of the divine demon sword. It was loose and lax. To say nothing of Ling Han, even if it was just a 3-year-old child, a light tap would probably turn the divine demon sword into the dust of history. Had it really been so madly struck by the heavenly tribulation that it had been completely finished? Ling Han could not believe it. He scanned the blade over and over again. The large black dog sighed, turned, and left. Since the divine demon sword could not advance to become a supreme heavenly venerate tool, then going to get another was not a realistic plan. They could only wait until either one of them broke through to the heavenly venerable tier. By then, it would be possible to suppress Heavenborn. However, it was possible that this time would come a considerable number of years later. Ling Han would not give up. He kept holding on to his faith. The divine demon sword could be considered a secondary body of his, possessing his unique trait of becoming stronger when encountering setbacks. How could it have possibly been struck dead with just a heavenly tribulation? 3 days later, Ling Han's divine sense had already flowed tens of thousands of times through the divine demon sword. Suddenly, he touched a point. This point was negligible, and it was extremely easy for him to pass it by in a flash, yet Ling Han discovered that there was a sliver of life left inside this point. He studied it carefully, and a hint of a smile appeared at the corners of his lips a while later. This kind of life surpassed divine metal. Though there was just a sliver, it could suppress all in terms of quality. The divine demon sword had indeed survived the heavenly venerate tribulation, but because it had not had the protection of its master, it had also been incredibly difficult for it to undergo the heavenly venerate tribulation. Paying the price of being practically completely destroyed, the sword had managed to survive. Thus, after undergoing the heavenly tribulation, it had not shone in brilliance. Instead, it was like it had failed to survive the heavenly tribulation, and had directly dropped down from the skies, so everyone thought that it had failed. But even if it had succeeded, this price was too great. Practically the whole sword had been destroyed and turned into scrap metal. It's fine. As long as the core is there, it can be repaired. Ling Han thought. Even for a cultivator, as long as they had survived the heavenly tribulation, no matter how severe the injuries, they could be healed. By then, their strength would soar and surpass their previous strength completely. Once the divine demon sword was repaired, it would be a truly supreme heavenly venerable tool, and advance to that strongest level. Ling Han did not inform the large black dog, and decided to wait until the divine demon sword recovered to give this guy a surprise. Next, Ling Han began concocting alchemical pills. Since he had already accepted fees from the Wang clan, he should deliver upon the promised time. Moreover, the Wang clan had previously supported him even if it meant becoming enemies with the He clan. Ling Han had to acknowledge this debt. After working for several months, Ling Han finally completed his mission. When Wang Yangming came, Ling Han asked him about the recent events in the martial academy. Aside from the fact that He Yufeng had gone to the realm battlefield, so had Heavenborn. Heavenborn was still a 7th heaven, but why was he able to go to the realm battlefield? That naturally was because his physique was too amazing. His physique was at the level of divine metal, and his defenses went all the way up to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Thus, as long as he was being careful, he would still be able to help here and there at the realm battlefield at the very least. Ling Han hesitated. Should he go to the realm battlefield? He had not made his decision yet, but the news of his return had already spread out in the martial academy, which also caused some people to pay him a visit. Just a few days later, a person appeared in front of his abode. It was like someone was about to die. He was banging strongly and loudly at Ling Han's door. This was too vulgar. Ling Han opened the doors, and saw a young man that looked to be in his 20s standing in the doorway. There were 4 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around him, his vitality very energetic and filled with heroic spirit. This man was very handsome, but it was unfortunate that the pride in his expression was too strong. It was as if he was looking down in disdain on the rest of the world, as if everyone should kneel down in front of him. "So you are Ling Han?" this young man asked boldly. "Pa." Ling Han sent a slap right over. How could that young man manage to dodge? Immediately, he was sent to the ground with this strike, passing out completely. How rude. Ling Han shook his head. Though he was using his superior strength to bully someone weaker, and had been the first to make a move, the fact that a mere 4th heaven dared to treat an 8th heaven celestial king like this was in itself an act of provocation. Even if he was beaten, he would deserve it. Ling Han had no worries that he had broken the rules of the martial academy. Moreover, Ling Han was just quietly staying at home, and hadn't trifled with anyone. Wasn't the other party just asking to be beaten? Ling Han slammed the doors shut and returned, continuing to nurture the divine demon sword. This sword had the same origins as Ling Han. His martial intent could stimulate the recovery of the divine demon sword, and this was something that only he could do. That young man simply lay like that at Ling Han's doors. There would be people passing by now and then, and when they saw this, they couldn't help but feel amused. Isn't that Yun Aokong from the Yun clan? A 4th heaven monarch star, and the Yun clan has placed very high hopes on him. Why would he be lying here? Isn't this the abode of Ling Han, that bringer of calamity? Hiss, Yun Aokong must have angered Ling Han, and that is why he has been knocked out. But there doesn't seem to have been any conflicts between him and Ling Han, right? I don't get it. When this news spread out, a great many people who had planned to visit Ling Han gave up that idea. How could Ling Han be so overbearing? Even the young master of the Yun clan was not worthy of entering. Though Yun Aokong was only a 4th heaven celestial king, the grand elder of the Yun clan was a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Could it be that Ling Han was really related to the Lin clan? Otherwise, how could he be so domineering? Yun Aokong only regained consciousness after being out cold for 3 whole days. He hurriedly scrambled to his feet, his expression slightly dazed, but immediately, he flew into a fury out of humiliation. He had actually been knocked unconscious here. Though he did not know how long had passed, it would definitely not have been any short period of time. There were definitely others that had witnessed his embarrassment. Damn. Peng, peng, peng. He began knocking on the doors again. After a while, the doors could finally be seen opening, revealing that face of Ling Han that was filled with impatience. Ling Han, you are too arrogant. I am of the Yun clan. Peng. Ling Han's hand descended, and another slap knocked Yun Aokong unconscious. He could not be bothered with whatever Yun clan, Ma clan, or Watchamamaklit. At the moment, his focus was completely on mending the divine demon sword. There just happened to be people who witnessed this, and the news instantly spread throughout the whole martial academy. The young master of the Yun clan had been knocked out at Ling Han's door 2 times in a row. When everyone heard this news, they first erupted into laughter, and then shook their head. Ling Han was truly one who dared to oppose a pseudo-heavenly venerate. He did not even take the Yun clan to heart. True, the He clan also had a grand elder that was a 4th-tier heavenly venerate, and Ling Han was still not seen to hold much fear, either. Another 3 days later, Yun Aokong slowly came back to his senses. His whole face was flushed crimson, and his expression darkened. As the most outstanding heir of the present generation of the Yun clan, he had naturally grown up under the protection of countless people since childhood. Furthermore, who would not give some face to a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate? Thus, he had never encountered any setbacks before. But in this place, he had been knocked out before he had even finished speaking, and was just lying at another's door like that, exposed completely to the elements. He really was about to go crazy. However, remembering his mission, Yun Aokong forcefully suppressed his fury. He could not just return miserably like this, after all. Right. He knocked on the doors again, but he was using much less force this time. He had finally learned his lesson. Chapter 2685, 2685 Old Debts. Chapter 2685, 2685 Old Debts. 2685 Old Debts. A while later, Ling Han came out to open the doors. Ling Han, I am of the Yun. Peng. The unfortunate Yun Aokong spoke just a few words before being knocked out again. 3 days later, he slowly came to for the third time. His first reaction was to kill Ling Han, and he was going to swallow and skin him alive at that, but remembering how he had been knocked out 3 times in a row, he finally woke up to reality. Ling Han was a great man who dared to oppose even a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Actually, he had not believed in this kind of rumor. For a 7th heaven celestial king to be capable of wounding a pseudo-heavenly venerate, wasn't that the greatest joke in the world? But now, he was starting to believe it. At the very least, this guy's courage was indeed astonishingly great. With such thoughts, Yun Aokong had finally learned his lesson, and knocked cautiously on the doors. The doors opened, and Ling Han appeared. I am Yun Aokong. Greetings, senior brother Ling. Yun Aokong corrected his attitude and bowed towards Ling Han with his fists clasped together. He was feeling uneasy. He wouldn't be knocked out with one strike again, would he? He had already been traumatized. In the end, Ling Han made no further move. After these few times, this young man finally understood the meaning of rules and how to respect others. He asked, "What is it?" Yun Aokong's mouth twitched a bit. He had been knocked out 3 times, and finally managed to get a chance to speak seriously. It had truly been very difficult. Thinking of his business here, his arrogance returned. I have come on behalf of the Yun clan to ask senior brother Ling to concoct alchemical pills for us for 100 million years for free. Pa. His words had just fallen, and he was once again knocked out cleanly by Ling Han. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Even if they came to him, bearing various kinds of natural treasures, concocting alchemical pills would still be up to his mood at the time. Had every single member in this Yun clan had their heads kicked by a donkey? They actually demanded that he concoct alchemical pills for them for 100 million years for free? Fuck, idiots. At present, he no longer needed divine metal. What he needed was ingredients that could help boost his physique to the level of indestructible divine metal physique. These might not be as valuable as divine metal, but they were strange and rare, and the difficulty level of obtaining such materials had increased several hundred times over. He had asked the Wang clan to search on his behalf, but it was possible that he would not be able to collect all of them even after several 100 million years. Thus, even if the Yun clan had come with divine metal as well, he would not give them any regard, what more when they were demanding that he do it for free. Did they think he was stupid? This time, Ling Han's force was considerably stronger because Yun Aokong only regained consciousness after 7 days. Shaking his head, he raised a hand to rub his head, and his expression became livid. By now, his head was as swollen as a pumpkin. Ling Han, he forced out through gritted teeth, but he hadn't said all he had come to say. There was no way he would return just like this, so he could only knock on the doors again. The doors opened to reveal Ling Han. Don't move. Let me finish my words. Yun Aokong hurriedly exclaimed, and even used his arms to protect his head. He was really traumatized by the repeated strikes. Seeing how Ling Han had not hit him, he hurriedly exclaimed, "Don't think that our Yun clan has gone too far. Our Grand Elder has said that you should not forget that the Celestial King graveyard was destroyed on your account." Ling Han was slightly taken aback before realization immediately dawned on him. When he came back to report the matter of Desolate Moon's conspiracy, causing Zhu Heng to step in and forcefully destroy the Celestial King graveyard, only a limited few people had managed to leave alive. That was because the majority of them had already been affected by the black qi, which was Hysteria's willpower, so they could only be killed. Actually, he had done them a great service. Otherwise, if tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates appeared, who knew what kind of frightening damage would be caused? However, some forces thought that it was Ling Han who had cut off one of their sources of income. Ascending Dragon Pill. Outside, no one dared to sell Ascending Dragon Pills openly, because this thing was really too filthy. It was formed by being irrigated with the blood and flesh of celestial kings, but these great forces could use it to boost the strength of their own clansmen. When they were all strong, they naturally had a greater say in things, and could then earn even more profits. For the sake of this, they had even sent their own clansmen there, and one example was the Azure Ghost Celestial King. But with the trouble caused by Ling Han, the Celestial King graveyard was completely gone, which naturally cut off the supply of ascending dragon pills as well. It was definite that a great many forces would be angered by this. The Yun clan was the first to seek him out for a reckoning. They could not demand compensation from Ling Han directly. After all, the matter of the Celestial King graveyard could not be discussed openly. Thankfully, Ling Han was also a great alchemist, so they had gotten the idea to demand him to concoct alchemical pills for them for 100 million years for free. How truly delusional. Pa. Ling Han knocked Yun Aokong out with another smack. 9 days later, Yun Aokong finally regained consciousness. This time, he did not knock on the doors again, but rather turned and left. He had finally said all he had come to say. Since Ling Han was being so stubborn, he'd just wait to meet the fury of the Yun clan. However, just to say these few simple words, Yun Aokong had actually been knocked out 5 times. Just the thought of it depressed him, and he was cursing Ling Han half to death in his heart. After Yun Aokong left, another few people paid Ling Han a visit. They either were polite, or would be threatening. However, all they said was more or less the same, and that was demanding that he compensate them for the losses incurred due to the destruction of the Celestial King graveyard by concocting alchemical pills for them for free. Ling Han naturally ignored all of them. Be it beating them up or chasing them away, he did all of it. If it were not for the fact that it was not proper to kill people in the martial academy, he really would rather be merciless so that he could finally get some peace. After Yun Aokong and the others returned and described Ling Han's attitude, it naturally garnered the great displeasure of the various great forces. As they saw it, Ling Han had ruined the Celestial King graveyard, and now he was actually going to slip away, forgetting the matter entirely. How could there be such a good thing in this world? Not long after, a great many Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings entered into the Martial Academy, planning to deal with Ling Han. As for the Heavenly Venerates, all the Heavenly Venerates had gone to the realm battlefield as per their agreement. They could only return for a period of rest after battling countless years. Thus, whether you were a 3rd tier, 4th tier, or 5th tier Heavenly Venerate force, there was no way you could ask for the interference of a Heavenly Venerate. Moreover, what kind of big deal was this? To ask a 3rd tier or 4th tier Heavenly Venerate to interfere just to deal with a 7th Heaven Celestial King? Naturally, they did not know that Ling Han had already advanced to the 8th heaven. When 9th Heaven Celestial Kings moved, as long as there were enough of them, they could even oppose a pseudo-Heavenly Venerate, so suppressing a puny 7th Heaven Celestial King was naturally no issue. Inside the abode, Ling Han breathed out a long sigh of relief. He spread open his hand, and a small sword lay in his palm. It really was very small, not even half an inch long, but though it might look small, it emanated a frightening aura, and even Heavenly Venerates would be moved. A Heavenly Venerate tool. With Ling Han's nurturing, the Divine Demon Sword had already recovered to the present size from its initial size of a point. It was growing up just like a child. Peng, peng, peng. Right at this moment, a knock rang out from the doors again. Ling Han sighed. Was he really too amicable, and that was why people kept coming to cause trouble for him? He stood up, and the Divine Demon Sword was also immediately covered with rust. Its size rapidly grew. These bits of metal had all fallen off the Divine Demon Sword, so they had a certain level of nurturing effects as well. He went out to open the doors. Amazing, there were actually over 39th Heaven Celestial Kings standing at his doorway. All of them had unleashed their auras, having absolutely no reservations. Aside from them, there were also young people like Yun Aokong. They, on the other hand, were standing very far away, all of them crossing their arms over their chests, and looking coldly at Ling Han. They wanted nothing more than to watch Ling Han be stomped into the ground, because they were all victims, and had suffered before in Ling Han's hands. Ling Han, you are truly outrageously bold. You still refuse to confess your crimes after causing such great trouble. A 9th Heaven Celestial King spoke up in rebuke, directly finalizing Ling Han's crime. Ling Han smiled slightly. It is best not to expose the matter of the Celestial King graveyard. If you guys get lost now, I will not be bothered to drop to the same level as you guys, either. Otherwise, do not blame me for being ruthless. Chapter 2686, 2686 Surrounded. Chapter 2686, 2686 Surrounded. 2686 Surrounded. The ninth heaven celestial kings would naturally not take this kind of threat seriously. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han was only a seventh heaven, even if he was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so what? About 10 of them working together would be able to block him, and when more than 30 peak stage ninth heaven celestial kings moved at the same time, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would shudder a bit. This brat is unreasonable. Looks like we can only take him down. That's right. Take him down. If we do not teach this kind of person a good lesson, it will damage the prestige of the Martial Academy. We cannot allow a bad apple like this to ruin the image of the Martial Academy. These celestial kings all showed their ugliness here. Regulations were being channeled, and they were about to make their move. They were arrogant enough to actually make a move in full public in the Martial Academy. They were unafraid, because they all had the backing of heavenly venerates, and they had long since given prior notice to the 2 heavenly venerates that were presently overlooking the Martial Academy. It was fine as long as Ling Han returned to the Martial Academy unharmed at the end. Of course, that was the bottom line as well. If disciples were injured under their watch, that would be truly inexcusable as well. It was not an assault from hysteria, after all. Ling Han's eyes swept over them, and he said, aside from those kids behind you, you all don't belong to the Martial Academy. Am I right? So what about it? These ninth heaven celestial kings all responded disdainfully. Ling Han revealed a grin filled with killing intent. In that case, it will be fine even if I kill all of you. How dare you? These ninth heaven celestial kings all rebuked coldly. A seventh heaven celestial king actually dared declare that he would kill all of them. They really had no idea where he got his courage from. Ling Han, do you need help? Du Shi's voice rang out. He stood proudly in midair, making no move to conceal his peak stage ninth heaven aura. Who knew how much stronger he was than other ninth heaven celestial kings? It was extremely possible that his evolution index had already reached 12. Hihi, if you do, I do not mind interfering, either. Can you also appeared? He crossed his arms over his chest, his eyes turning red. His killing intent seemed to have already been ignited. I am here as well. Amu appeared at another side. The 3 great big shots appeared at the same time, and they all seemed very unconcerned. They did not take these ninth heaven celestial kings to heart at all. Ling Han laughed, and said, thank you. However, they are just some trash. I am more afraid that there are not enough of them for me to kill. Damn. Those ninth heaven celestial kings were all fuming with rage. It was one thing that Amu and company were so domineering. They were all famous freaks, and it was publicly acknowledged that they were capable of becoming heavenly venerates. The only question was just how much time they needed. But who did Ling Han think he was? He was nothing but a seventh heaven celestial king. Did he think that just because he managed to make He Yufeng bleed, he was already a pseudo-heavenly venerate himself? No way. Brat, let me teach you the proper way to behave. A ninth heaven celestial king jumped out, and then grabbed out at Ling Han. This strike was extremely direct, using the ninth heaven celestial king's cultivation level to overwhelm Ling Han. There were 9 heavens in the celestial king tier, every single step forwards as difficult as ascending the heavens. Cultivation level was the greatest advantage a celestial king could have because the regulations they could extract at different cultivation levels were completely different. Ling Han stood motionlessly, and waited until the assault of this ninth heaven celestial king almost reached him before he finally threw a punch. But when this fist moved, it was as fast as a streak of light. Pang! His fist pierced through his opponent's offensive, the force of the punch penetrating deeply. And when the expression of that celestial king changed dramatically, the force of the blow had already reached him. With crushing power, he was instantly sent flying. That celestial king collapsed onto the ground, throwing up blood continuously. Instantly, a dead silence fell. What's going on? A seventh heaven celestial king actually punched so hard that it caused a ninth heaven celestial king to throw up blood? Eighth heaven. When Ling Han moved, 8 ribbons of iridescent light immediately appeared around him. Not even 10 million years have passed, and he has already advanced from the 7th heaven to 8th heaven. He truly is a freak. But even if he is an 8th heaven celestial king, to defeat a 9th heaven celestial king with a single punch, this is really too inconceivable. The expressions of those 9th heaven celestial kings all changed drastically. They had never imagined that Ling Han was actually so powerful. This was a 9th heaven celestial king. It was extremely hard to break through to the 9th heaven. No matter how freakish Ling Han was, he would also be stuck at the 9th heaven for a period of time, and after he crossed this threshold, his strength would also spike. Thus, there were definitely no weaklings among those who could advance to the 9th heaven. They were all elites that had reached the standards required. Even such big shots like Amu and Du Shi would only be able to oppose 4 to 5 9th heaven celestial kings at the same time. How could Ling Han be so strong? Amu and the other big shots all showed hints of surprise. The present Ling Han was already completely equipped with the qualifications to stand against them. Then, wouldn't Ling Han be able to suppress them once he broke through? Just how was this brat cultivating? The reason was very simple. That was because Ling Han was using void particle energy to temper himself. He was technically a pseudo-heavenly venerate himself, but he was still limited to the 8th heaven. It naturally was no issue for him to match a peak stage 9th heaven celestial king. At this moment, all the 9th heaven celestial kings felt grim. They finally knew that it was not because Ling Han enjoyed boasting that he dared to say such a thing, but rather that he really did have the strength, and this strength reached a level far beyond anyone's imagination. There is no need to worry. There are more than 30 peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings here. As long as we all work together, it is still a small matter for us to take this brat down, a 9th heaven celestial king of the Yun clan said. That's right. More celestial kings nodded. An 8th heaven celestial king was only just an 8th heaven celestial king. Faced with a force like them, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would have to take a few steps back. Ling Han took a deep breath, and said evenly, "Today, I will use the heads of 9th heaven celestial kings like you to establish my reputation. I truly would like to see if there would be others that would dare to stretch out their paws towards me in future." Shameless talk. All the 9th heaven celestial kings were exploding with fury. Ling Han did not waste any more words. He moved. Pang. Exerting force from his feet, he stomped on the ground, and his whole person instantly shot into the skies at an extraordinary speed. Don't even think of running. All the 9th heaven celestial kings hurriedly set off in hot pursuit, fearing that Ling Han would escape. Ling Han was all alone, but there were many 9th heaven celestial kings. It was definitely impossible that they all had the same speed. Furthermore, to prevent Ling Han from escaping, the faster celestial kings would naturally race out at full speed, not daring to hold the slightest bit back. In this manner, the over 30 celestial kings instantly became a long line of people. It was at this moment that Ling Han suddenly made an about turn. He suddenly halted, and then charged back downwards, his fists waving furiously. The 9 transformations divine scroll was already being channeled, and with the present force of Ling Han's fists, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would have to sustain considerable injury if they were hit. How could the foremost celestial king expect that Ling Han would actually dare to turn around and charge back towards them? He did not have any time to dodge at all. He hurriedly concentrated all his power into his hands, which were wrapped with great Tao as he rushed forth to meet Ling Han's incoming offensive. Peng! They exchanged blows once, and it was visible that the hands of that celestial king had instantly been crushed from the impact, turning into shreds of blood and flesh that flew in all directions. Moreover, his skin was rippling like the waves of water. Peng, peng, peng. His arms looked like they were each an open umbrella, leaving behind only a skeletal frame as blood and flesh were flying out from the impact in an arc. Ah! That celestial king screamed out in pain. This injury was really too serious. And with this delay, the other celestial kings also caught up, and they all directed their respective attacks at Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. He was only at the 8th heaven, after all, and was not a genuine pseudo-heavenly venerate. Even if he had prepared for this attack fully and carefully, he had only caused serious injury to his target, but could not kill him with a single punch. Chapter 2687, 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. Chapter 2687, 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. 2687 Killing 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. But the people who saw this scene from below were absolutely stupefied. Although Ling Han had once knocked back a 9th Heaven Celestial King with a single strike, it was possible that that Celestial King had been careless and had not gone all out. However, the current situation was different. Everyone already knew how freakish Ling Han was, and yet the opponent was still injured by a single strike from Ling Han, which meant that Ling Han's strength was insane. However, the 30-odd Celestial Kings had already caught up and surrounded him. It's over now. Having fallen into this encirclement, it's impossible for Ling Han to escape. Unless he is a pseudo-heavenly venerate, 10 Celestial Kings at the peak of the 9th heaven could only take on a pseudo-heavenly venerate and just barely manage a tie, but if one really wanted to bury a pseudo-heavenly venerate, it would be completely impossible to do so without 100 or so Celestial Kings at the peak of the 9th heaven. Hence, it would have been naturally easy for a pseudo-heavenly venerate to break through such a siege. But in Ling Han's case, it was impossible no matter what. Unless the two lords in charge of the Martial Academy take action. That's impossible. These 9th Heaven Celestial Kings dare to take action publicly, obviously they must have already given them prior notice. As long as they don't seriously injure Ling Han. Below them, Yun Aokong and the other young people kept sneering, expressing delight as they were finally going to see the devil who tortured them pay the price. Amu, Du Shi, and Can You looked at each other, and all of them frowned slightly. They were thinking, how would they resolve such a predicament if it were them? Confronting the enemies forcefully would definitely lead to adverse consequences. Even if one could kill off a few Celestial Kings, one would eventually be overwhelmed. What was Ling Han to do? Simple. With a loud battle cry, he fought wildly without any reservations. Reckless, too reckless. Wasn't this accelerating his defeat? Boom. All the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings launched their attacks together, the regulations circulated dazzlingly, and the regulations of the Great Tao exploded with such monstrous power that even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would probably frown, right? Ling Han threw punches to counter the attacks, but there were too many attacks. Some of the attacks were neutralized by him, while some were not, and they hit him. However, a terrifying scene appeared. These attacks that hit Ling Han's body splattered into brilliant rays of light, but they couldn't break through his defense. What? All the Celestial Kings were stunned. This was mind-blowing. What kind of defense did this brat possess? It was practically supernatural. Indestructible Celestial King physique. Having cultivated such a physique, even if all the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings blasted him together, it still wouldn't cause any wounds. Only a pseudo-heavenly venerate could cause damage to this kind of physique. So, what did Ling Han have to fear? He rampaged through the group of Celestial Kings and launched attacks arbitrarily. He didn't need to be concerned about defense at all. Below, everyone who was witnessing all this was dumbstruck. He actually possessed such a supernatural physique. Perhaps it wouldn't lack by much even when compared to Heavenborns. Perhaps the defense of Heavenborn would be slightly stronger, but the question was, would the battle prowess of Heavenborn be able to tear through Ling Han's defense? It was fine as long as it was useful enough. Ling Han shouted and punched furiously with both fists. Not only were these forces unappreciative of his contributions, they even blamed him for the destruction of the Celestial King graveyard. This made him extremely angry. In his opinion, these people ought to be thrown into the realm battlefield, and fend for themselves or perish on their own. Well then, let him clean them up now. Ling Han delivered blows without any qualms. Within just 30 minutes, more than a dozen Celestial Kings were injured by him. However, as Ling Han couldn't keep channeling the 9 transformations divine scroll or the 5 elements lightning technique all the time, these celestial kings were only slightly injured. He wasn't very satisfied. He had originally planned to kill a few of them. However, such battle prowess stunned each and every one of them. Was Ling Han a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Being besieged by more than 39th heaven celestial kings, not only was he not suppressed, he injured more than a dozen celestial kings instead. There was no one else with such battle prowess. Unleash your ultimate technique. Those celestial kings flew into rage due to humiliation, and felt that their faces were hot with embarrassment. The fact that so many celestial kings had joined forces to besiege an 8th heaven celestial king already made them lose face, and they were even injured by their opponent. In the future, how could any of them be able to hold their head high? A dozen or more celestial kings continued to tie up Ling Han, and the other celestial kings began launching ultimate attacks to destroy Ling Han in one fell swoop. This was a shameless move, but very effective. A dozen or more celestial kings could detain even a pseudo-heavenly venerate, so of course they could block Ling Han as well. Therefore, Ling Han could only look helplessly at those celestial kings launching powerful attacks, but could do nothing at all to stop them. Subdue him. 7 celestial kings took the lead in gathering power, and blasted out terrifying attacks. Boom! 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 More celestial kings launched powerful attacks to suppress Ling Han. The endless radiance shone brightly and dispersed in a dazzling manner, like beautiful fireworks, but all the people watching the battle were thinking the same thing. Such a fierce attack had better not kill Ling Han, as that would be a big problem, and the Lin clan might appear. What kind of existence was the Lin clan? With a 7th-tier heavenly venerate in charge, even if Lin Luo would not appear personally, Zhu Heng, Lin Xiaoyang, or Chu Hao could just walk out and defeat 99% of the Genesis world. Who could afford to provoke them? The radiance of the attacks dissipated, and what could be seen in the center of the battle zone was a streak of golden light transforming into a spherical shape. Ling Han. He had activated the indestructible heaven scroll, and directly blocked the powerful attacks of the celestial kings. He was practically unscathed. He was still injured, there were wounds on his arms and lower abdomen, but they were only minor injuries. After all, there were about 30 celestial kings at the peak of the 9th heaven who had blasted powerful attacks simultaneously, so even indestructible heaven's scroll wasn't able to prevent him from getting any injury. However, such injuries were naturally trivial, and it was impossible for them to affect his battle prowess. They had to be seeing things. All the celestial kings were numb with shock. Such defensive power practically made them feel hopeless. There was absolutely no solution. Ling Han's killing intent was blazing, and he finally took out the divine demon sword. If he wanted to break through the defenses of these celestial kings and start killing them, it was absolutely impossible to do it with just his own strength. Then he would use the most supreme precious tool. Ha ha ha. When they saw Ling Han taking out such a weapon, all the 9th heaven celestial kings laughed out loud. Did you take out something so tattered just for the fun of it? They had not used any celestial tool. Firstly, it was because divine metal was rare, and it was not possible that every single person could obtain a piece. Secondly, they wanted to capture Ling Han, so they naturally would not use any celestial tools. Otherwise, it was possible that he would be killed or injured severely, which wasn't their original intention. Just now, they were shocked because all their powerful attacks were blocked by Ling Han, but now they were laughing hilariously. Ling Han also laughed. Now these people were laughing, but they would be crying later. He took a step. His body art exploded, and his speed was so great he was already in front of one person. He slashed out with his sword. Now all these celestial kings knew that his body art was amazing, so they moved in groups of 2. When one person was being attacked, the other person would help to cope with it. Hence, 2 great celestial kings simultaneously sent out attacks to counter Ling Han. Pu. Cold light dazzled, and the 9 heavens shook. Although the 2 celestial kings had blasted out their attacks, in the midst of the swirling of the cold light, they were undoubtedly cut in half. Slashed at the waist like they were nothing. This. What was going on here? Even if the tattered and broken sword was a celestial tool, 9th heaven celestial kings also stood at the peak of the regulations. With them entwined in great Tao, not even a celestial tool could kill them. But with one slash, both celestial kings were cut in half. This was too ridiculous, wasn't it? After a long time, someone finally stuttered with great difficulty, "Heavenly venerate tool." Chapter 2688 regarded as a great emperor. Chapter 2688 regarded as a great emperor. 2688 regarded as a great emperor. Heavenly venerate tool, supreme might. Ling Han stood with his sword in hand. It was speckled with rust like a knife that had been kept for a long time in a woodshed, but who would dare to underestimate this sword now? This was a supreme precious tool, and killing celestial kings was like child's play. So what if Ling Han's strength was low? Even if it was a 10-year-old child holding a peerless divine sword, the consequences of an adult taking it on point blank would still only cause him grievous injuries. Furthermore, Ling Han's strength wasn't feeble at all, and not in the least inferior to the peak of the ninth heaven. In fact, he could even suppress them in reverse. For a while, blood rained from the sky, mourning the passing of the two celestial kings. All the celestial kings were trembling. They had never thought that the situation would have developed to such a state. "Now, do you all feel the pain?" Ling Han said menacingly, and he slashed out again without the slightest hesitation. Since he had already started killing, why would he restrain himself anyway? He wouldn't mess with people voluntarily, but if anyone were to mess with him, he would hit them until they experienced bone-deep pain. Kill. Ling Han burst out with the power of body art, and his speed was astonishing. He was slashing out with the divine demon sword in hand, not needing any technique at all. This was the invincibility of an ultimate weapon. Immediately, the 30-odd celestial kings fled in all directions. There was already an example laid out in front of them. Two great ninth heaven celestial kings were easily cut into halves easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. When the destructive power of the supreme precious tool swept past them, any celestial king would only be killed on the spot. Who would want to be the third one? They were originally just an unruly mob, and naturally they would be united when they had the upper hand, but in the face of danger, they would naturally care only for themselves, with no regard to the life or death of others. However, Ling Han was even faster. He caught up with one, slashed out with the divine demon sword, and, sure enough, this celestial king was cut in half. Blood splattered all over, and once again triggered a great natural calamity. The last time Ling Han had started killing like this, he had depended on the Black Tower for a power boost to slaughter many celestial kings in the foreign realm. After so many years had passed, he could finally slaughter celestial kings with his own strength. Moreover, they were all ninth heaven celestial kings, and their bearing was on a different level completely. After climbing in the world of martial arts for so many years, Ling Han had finally reached the pinnacle of the celestial path, and possessed the qualifications to look down on the rest of the world. He could be regarded as a great emperor. Ling Han kept up his hot pursuit, and the awful screaming continued. He caught up with one celestial king after another, and they were each slashed by his sword. With his strength and the power of the divine demon sword, no one could block any of the sword's attacks. However, by the time Ling Han had killed the 11th person, the remaining celestial kings had already escaped into the distance, and it was impossible to catch up to them. However, he had killed 11 celestial kings in one battle, and scared off the remaining 20 or so, and they were all celestial kings at the peak of the ninth heaven at that. Wasn't this enough? He's the strongest celestial king by far, no? Absolutely. Even if He Yufeng were to come over, he wouldn't succeed. He would only be beaten up badly and flee in disgrace. It's not that He Yufeng is weak, but that the heavenly venerate tool is too powerful. Who would have thought that Ling Han would actually take out a heavenly venerate tool, one so incomparably domineering that it resolved the situation, and firmly establish his status as a great emperor of celestial kings? After this battle, it is likely that there won't be another celestial king who would dare to challenge Ling Han. Amu and the others also shook their heads. If it was a fair fight, they would naturally not be afraid of Ling Han. However, if it was a celestial king with a heavenly venerate tool in hand, even they would be helpless. This battle had far-reaching consequences. The noble clans involved were all trembling. They didn't expect Ling Han's strength to be so powerful. Which of them would dare to cause trouble to Ling Han again? More than 10 ninth heaven celestial kings had died in vain. Who asked them not to be disciples of the martial academy? If the heavenly venerates in the realm battlefield wouldn't return, Ling Han would really be able to do anything he liked in the whole realm, and probably even pseudo-heavenly venerates might not be able to suppress him, right? As Ling Han's figure descended, he cast a glance at Yun Aokong and the others, and said lightly, "Don't worry, I won't touch any of you. As long as you don't take the initiative to provoke me, you will remain under the protection of the Martial Academy's rules." Only then did Yun Aokong and the others breathe a sigh of relief, feeling the sensation of cold sweat on their foreheads. "But all of you will report the location of your ancestral grounds," Ling Han added. What did this guy intend to do? He wouldn't charge towards their home bases, right? Why the delay? Ling Han glared at them. Yun Aokong and the others dared not say anything else, and quickly revealed the whereabouts of their respective clans. As a matter of fact, they couldn't believe it. Would Ling Han really dare to make a move against their clans? One ought to know that they were all Heavenly Venerate level forces, and their background was extremely powerful. It wasn't something that a puny 8th Heaven Celestial King could even imagine. Once they had left, Amu and the others came over. "Junior brother Ling, it seems that you are stuck at a bottleneck before the 9th Heaven," Du Shi spoke first. "I have been there. This level is very hard to describe. Some people have passed through it after tens of thousands of years, while there are others who still remain at the same level for millions and millions of years. Furthermore, the higher one's talent, the more difficult it is to break through. This is a sign that heaven and earth is targeting you." Ling Han nodded. Given heaven and earth's hindrance, of course it would be beset with difficulties. "We have also been stuck at the peak of the 9th Heaven for too long. We intend to go to the Burst Cloud volcano for training. It is an absolutely dangerous place where danger lurks at every step. You can come with us, perhaps you might find an opportunity for breakthrough," Amu spoke as well. Ling Han thought for a while. "When are you leaving?" "Just in the next few days. Then you all can go ahead first. I still have some matters to deal with. Once I'm done, I'll meet up with all of you at the Burst Cloud volcano." "All right." Amu and the others took their leave, and Ling Han returned to his abode. He was planning his itinerary as he wanted to make a trip to visit the forces that had besieged him just now, and have them provide him with an explanation for this matter. So he was an easy target to bully, was he? The over 30 celestial kings came from a total of 9 forces. He believed that this was only a small part of the forces that had interfered with the black market chain of profits at the Celestial King graveyard. The other forces might have yet to come to settle accounts with Ling Han, or they had yet to make a move. Ling Han couldn't care less. He only knew that if anyone held out a knife to him, he would return the favor with his fist fiercely. A short while later, the large black dog arrived. "Brat, you are so powerful." His eyes shone. "Just average," Ling Han replied, smiling. Was the divine demon sword really successful in upgrading? The large black dog almost couldn't believe it. Ling Han nodded. "That's right." "Great." The large black dog slapped his paws hard, and then showed a pitiful expression. "Heavenborn has gone to the realm battlefield. If not, we could go strike a staggering blow tonight." Ling Han laughed heartily. "There are heavenly venerates in charge here. It is too difficult to do bad things under their noses. It's even better that he went to the realm battlefield. As long as we find him, we can do whatever we want." "That's right." The large black dog nodded. "Before that, let's go to settle some accounts," Ling Han said. "Grandpa Dog likes that." The large black dog nodded happily. "With whom are we settling the accounts?" After hearing Ling Han list the names of each of the forces, the large black dog couldn't help but twitch. Grandpa Dog takes back what he's just said. "You should go on your own as I seem to have diarrhea." These were all Heavenly Venerate level forces. Who knew how terrifying their background could be, he definitely didn't want to go seeking death. "It's all right. All the Heavenly Venerates are at the realm battlefield. Besides, let's bring Wally with us," Ling Han said with a smile. "Makes sense." The large black dog nodded. Worley's ability to break formations was the best. With him around, their safety would be greatly increased. They went to call on Worley. Worley was reluctant to go at first, but once Ling Han took out 3 pieces of divine metal, he agreed. Chapter 2689, 2689 Debt Collection begins. Chapter 2689, 2689 Debt Collection begins. 2689 Debt Collection begins. The Wang clan had sent over a dozen pieces of divine metal, but Ling Han did not use all of them. Now that the divine metal did not bear much significance to him, it was just appropriate for him to use it to settle the old outstanding debt to Worley. Having made payment of what was due, Ling Han and the others set off in accordance to the route he had planned out, and began their journey to each clan to seek an explanation. The Liu clan was the closest to them, but even with the trio's pace on foot, it took a month's journey to reach the place. They did not directly invade the place. Indeed, the Liu clan had a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Though he had already gone to the realm battlefield much earlier, and would only come back once in a long time, who knew what kind of formation a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate would set up, perhaps one that could even kill a pseudo-heavenly venerate? It would be wise to be cautious. Worley stepped up first, and shot out a beam of green light for scanning and checking out the actual situation of the Liu clan. After 100 million years, Worley had also extracted all the energy in the dimension scroll, and his conversion efficiency far exceeded that of Ling Han. Ling Han had no idea if Worley's battle prowess had increased, but this scanning ability of his had indeed been improved by few hundredfold, and under the channeling of his intent, green light beamed out for a few hundred meters before becoming transparent in color, like the rays of sunlight, and even a heavenly venerate wouldn't be able to distinguish it. 19 beings with vitality index of about 13,037 beings with a vitality index of about 12,000, Worley said as he was getting a clear picture of the actual situation of the Liu clan. There were only 19 ninth heaven celestial kings, which wasn't enough to fight them. Ling Han sighed ruefully, and then he laughed in spite of himself. 19 ninth heaven celestial kings could just barely manage to block 2 pseudo-heavenly venerates, and in this world where the heavenly venerates wouldn't appear, what was there to worry about? Moreover, even if there was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, how would he dare to offend the Liu clan? Wouldn't he be afraid that the 3rd-tier heavenly venerate of the Liu clan would flip out? "Brat, are we really going to do it?" the large black dog asked. He was still a little terrified. After all, the karmic life heavenly venerable had only been a 1st-tier heavenly venerate back then, far inferior to the one from Liu clan. Of course. Ling Han nodded. He had neither provoked anyone nor stirred up problems for anyone, and yet these 9 major forces wanted to capture him for concocting alchemical pills. How could he let this slide? Is there any power at the heavenly venerable tier? Ling Han asked Worley. Worley shook his head. No. Since Worley said that there was none, then it had to be so. Come to think of it, that would be about right with the prestige of the 3rd-tier heavenly venerate in addition to 99th heaven celestial kings. Would they need anything else? Let's go. Ling Han walked out first. The large black dog hesitated for a moment, and followed suit, while only Worley stayed in the same spot, and transformed his body into a stone. If it weren't for Ling Han and the large black dog witnessing the transformation with their own eyes, it would be impossible to distinguish him from other stones. "I'm not going," Worley said. "I'm an analytical war soldier, not a combatant. It's better for Grandpa Dog to be in charge of cleaning up the battlefield, and wrap things up at the end." The large black dog became terrified. "You're coming with me." Ling Han grabbed the large black dog. It was fine for Worley since he was only helping out, but the large black dog wanted to reap without sowing. "No, don't." The large black dog kicked out his hind legs madly, bearing a miserable expression like he was about to be eaten as dog meat. The 2 of them, one walking and the other screaming, soon came to the front door of the Liu clan. In fact, this was a city, but it completely belonged to the Liu clan. Although there were some people in the city whose surname wasn't Liu, they were all extended family members of the Liu clan, and they formed the huge structure of the Liu clan together with some servants. There was a guard at the door, and seeing Ling Han dragging a large black dog over, though it was extremely strange, he still dutifully stepped forward and asked, "Who is it?" Ling Han stopped in his tracks and said, "Go inform those who have the authority to speak and decide, and say that Ling Han is here to collect a debt." Debt collection? Coming here to the Liu clan? There were 4 guards at the entrance, and they all sneered when they heard this. What kind of place is the Liu clan? It is a holy place overseen by a heavenly venerate. Are you here to court death? Insolence. A guard jumped out immediately. Without knowing the strength of Ling Han, of course they wouldn't notify the higher-ups. Otherwise, the Liu clan might put up great fanfare, but the visitor could actually be just someone of Mountain River tier. Wouldn't that make Liu clan the laughingstock of the realm? And they would be severely punished. Take him down. He made a move and grabbed Ling Han. Ling Han stepped on his foot lightly, and the ground suddenly split open, a crack extending from under his foot all the way to the city wall. When it reached the root of the city wall, it didn't stop, but continued to move up. A humongous crack immediately appeared on the city wall as if it was a mouth bared out in a grin. The guard who made the move earlier stumbled, and his body swayed for a moment before he regained his footing. He stared in horror at the crack around him, and turned around following the extension of the crack. When he saw that the city wall was damaged, he was practically scared out of his wits. This city wall had been refined and enhanced by many celestial kings, and it was sufficient to withstand several attacks from high-level celestial kings, but Ling Han just stomped his foot, and the city wall was cracked open. There was no direct attack at all. Wasn't this enough proof of how powerful Ling Han's strength could be? The 4 guards trembled simultaneously. This was a really overwhelming strength. It was just that they were still puzzled. No matter how strong Ling Han was, he couldn't be compared to the 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Why would he dare to charge here to the doors of the Liu clan? What's going on? A sharp voice sounded, and a figure flew out from within the city and landed at the city gate. He pointed to the crack in the city wall and interrogated the 4 guards. This was a young man. Judging by the flame of life, he had cultivated for hundreds of millions of years at most, but was already wrapped around by a ribbon of iridescent light. He was a first heaven celestial king, which was truly extraordinary. The 4 guards were still numb, and upon hearing what was said, they all pointed towards Ling Han. Him. The young man looked at Ling Han, and couldn't help it as the corners of his mouth twitched. What kind of combination was this pair? Ling Han appeared normal, but he was holding a large black dog, and this large black dog was too abnormal. Although his fur was smooth like satin, he was wearing a pair of black iron underwear, which was reflecting cold light. No matter how one was to look at him, there was a vulgar aura that emanated from him. Just who do you think you are? How dare you destroy the gate of our Liu clan? The young man knew that he himself wouldn't be able to do this, and that his strength was definitely not equal to Ling Han's, but when he was asking this, there was an air of haughtiness and arrogance about him. He completely looked down on Ling Han. This was the arrogance of the members of a noble heavenly venerable tier clan. They were like, so what about it? Given a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate as my ancestor, I can be overbearing and an arrogant bully. If you don't agree, then I will destroy you. Ling Han sighed, stretched out his left hand, and slapped the young man through the air. With the kind of strength did he have now? Since he already made a move, how would a first heaven celestial king be able to block it? Impacted by a slap in the face, the young man was suddenly sent flying, and quite coincidentally became embedded in the crack of the city wall, like a decoration. This person was a direct descendant of the main line of the Liu clan. Thus, seeing this, the 4 guards suddenly reacted, and hurriedly shouted loudly, "Fu!" Young master fuming. A guard pointed at Ling Han as he said, You're in big trouble. Quickly, go get reinforcements," the 2nd guard yelled anxiously. Ling Han smiled. He effortlessly took out a chair, sat down, and smilingly said, "Don't worry, I'll be waiting right here. Go quickly and call someone over." Too arrogant. He was too arrogant. All the 4 guards were extremely furious. Having barged into the Liu clan and struck with absolutely zero restraint, Ling Han was still so relaxed. Chapter 2690 Compensate me for my losses. Chapter 2690, 2690 Compensate me for my losses. 2690 Compensate me for my losses. Little Han, quickly let go of Grandpa Dog, the large black dog shouted. Ling Han loosened his grip accordingly, and the large black dog ran off immediately. While running, he also exclaimed, I will be on the lookout for you. If you lose, Grandpa Dog will come out to save you. Shio, he ran off and disappeared. This damn dog was really cowardly and only interested in saving his own neck. Ling Han didn't mind anyway. In fact, he even closed his eyes and appeared nonchalant. The 4 guards were trembling with fear. Liu Fuming was still embedded in the city wall, with all 4 limbs dangling, and it was unknown whether he was dead or still alive. If someone from the Liu clan came out to ask, how would they answer? It seemed that whatever you were afraid of would materialize. A short while later, 3 figures arrived in a flash. Although the 3 arrived almost at the same time, they did not come together, but separately rushed here from 3 corners of the city. What's going on? Why is Fuming injured? And who is this person? The 3 of them cast a sweeping glance around, looking very angry. Who would be as bold as to come to the Liu clan to cause injury, and even damage the city wall of the Liu clan? It's him. The 4 guards hurriedly pointed at Ling Han. His name is Ling Han. Ling Han? The 3 people who came over all frowned. It seemed like they had never heard the name. It sounds familiar. One of them racked his brains for a while, and felt as if he had heard the name somewhere. He couldn't help but keep trying his best to recall it again. Humph, I don't care who you are, if you dare to come to the Liu clan to commit a crime, then you must be tired of living, said a man in green clothing. He was a 3rd heaven celestial king, and his face was full of arrogance. Even if you are a 9th heaven celestial king, you can only prostrate or go down on your knees here. This was the arrogance of the members of the Liu clan. No matter who Ling Han was, even if he was a 9th heaven celestial king, the Liu clansman was neither terrified nor afraid. Ling Han shook his head. You're really used to being arrogant and domineering, and don't even know how to talk properly. He waved his hand and struck the man in green clothing in a similarly nonchalant manner as he had before. It was another swat at empty air like before, as if he was swatting a mosquito. Pa. When the strike landed, the man in green was instantly sent flying, and he was tightly stuck in the crack of the city wall near Liu Fuming, with one on top of the other, as if they were trying to mend the crack on the wall with their own bodies. How brazen of you, you actually dare to make a move, the man in red shouted fiercely. This man was too reckless. How could he be so impudent? You can go join them too. Ling Han waved his palm again, and the man in red became embedded in the crack as well. You are Ling Han, that Ling Han. At last, the other man finally remembered where he had heard Ling Han's name, but when he raised his head, he saw that the 2 people around him had disappeared. As he turned to look for them, he found the 2 of them were embedded in the city wall together. It was really too brutal. He thought of the legend regarding Ling Han, who had killed more than 10 9th heaven celestial kings in one battle. They were all celestial kings at the peak of the 9th heaven. Even for a heavenly venerable tier force such as theirs, it would take several epochs to nurture a celestial king to reach the peak of the 9th heaven. The fall of one would mean that countless resources had been exhausted in vain. Now you know who I am. Ling Han smiled, but he still waved his right hand without hesitation. Pa, the last person was also sent flying, and became embedded in the crack of the city wall. I have always been fair in doing things. Since I was the one who broke the wall, I will fix it up, Ling Han said to himself. When the 4 guards heard it, the corners of their mouths twitched. They thought to themselves, how could you fix up the wall like this, filling it up with celestial kings one after another? This is too extravagant, and the Liu clan will be angered like crazy. Sure enough, another celestial king appeared after a short while. This time, more people came because the longer the interval from the time that the alert signal was issued, the more people would receive the news. Moreover, the longer the time it took for news that the alert signal was resolved to arrive, the more it would naturally seem that something was not right, and this had to have alerted certain powerful beings. Shio, 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 more than a dozen celestial kings flew down from various corners of the city. When they saw that the city wall had cracked open, and it was filled with 4 celestial kings of their own clan. All of them had a cold glint in their eyes. Who could be so brazen? Did he want to die? You bastard, how dare you still remain seated? Hurry, be on your knees and receive your death penalty. A young man leaped out. He only had the cultivation level of the 2nd heaven, but there were clansmen at the 5th heaven and 6th heaven nearby, so he naturally was full of confidence and fearless. Noisy. Ling Han coldly snorted, and waved his palm at the young man through the air. Insolence. 2 6th heaven celestial kings immediately snarled. How dared he resort to violence in front of them? They both moved, meeting Ling Han's incoming attack. Peng, peng, peng. Accompanied by 3 bangs, the 2 6th heaven celestial kings and the young man at the 2nd heaven from before were similarly sent off flying with a palm strike, and became embedded in the city wall. All the other celestial kings of the Liu clan couldn't help but feel chills all over their bodies. This was too savage. How could a 6th heaven celestial king be like a toy in front of Ling Han, sent off flying with just a casual slap through the air? Ling Han looked up at the city wall, and said to himself, it's still a dozen or so short. If it was filled with a dozen more people, the city wall would be patched up, albeit in a sloppy way. Hearing this, the other celestial kings of the Liu clan were all so scared that their faces became pale, and they all retreated one by one. Now the strongest among them was merely a 5th heaven celestial king, who would be as powerless as a sheep in front of Ling Han. Wang. A terrifying pressure descended, and an elite came down from the sky, wrapped in 9 ribbons of iridescent light. A 9th heaven celestial king had come. Finally, a real elite had appeared. Elder Qiyuan. It's Elder Qiyuan who has come. Elder, please take action and suppress this villain. Those celestial kings of the Liu clan shouted in unison. Now that their pillar of strength had come, they were suddenly all tough. The name of the 9th heaven celestial king was Liu Qiyuan. He looked at Ling Han, and said solemnly, so it is friend Ling who has arrived. Why not present your identity clearly so that Liu clan could receive you as a guest properly? What? Hearing this, all the others of the Liu clan were stunned. Had the elder gone crazy to be so polite to a villain? They were the Liu clan, with a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate in charge. To say nothing of a 9th heaven celestial king, even if it was a pseudo-heavenly venerate who had come, he would have to be respectful and courteous. Ling Han smiled lightly. I'm here to collect a debt. You can just barely be regarded as the person in charge. I'll ask you then, how will you pay for my damages after sending people to the martial academy to besiege me? Compensate for your damages? Liu Qiyuan almost jumped out. You killed 2 9th heaven celestial kings from our Liu clan, and yet still want the Liu clan to compensate you? However, thinking of Ling Han's brutality, more than 30 celestial kings at the peak of the 9th heaven had attacked simultaneously at that time, but the result was that not only had they failed to take down Ling Han, more than 10 celestial kings at the peak of Celestial Path had met their demise. They had suffered a colossal loss. Now, the Liu clan only had 19 9th heaven celestial kings, and there was no one at all with the strength of pseudo-heavenly venerate. How would they be able to take on this brutal murderer? Ling Han, you best not forget that this is the Liu clan. Our Grand Elder is, after all, a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate. Liu Qiyuan said menacingly. Now he just hoped that would scare Ling Han. When the Grand Elder of the Liu clan returned in the future, he would naturally suppress Ling Han. It would just be as easy as turning his hand over. Ling Han laughed out loud. If I had been afraid, why would I have come? He withdrew his smile and tapped the armrest of the chair. Don't waste my time. If you don't think carefully on how to compensate me, then I'll go in and get it myself. Chapter 2691, 2691 Not Enough. Chapter 2691, 2691 Not Enough. 2691 Not Enough. Liu Qiyuan pointed at Ling Han, so furious that he could barely speak. This is the Liu clan, you bastard. Ling Han's gaze became harsh. The thing I hate the most is when others point their finger at me. With a bounce of his feet, peng, he burst out instantly at an astonishing speed, charging towards Liu Qiyuan. Though Liu Qiuan was very wary of Ling Han, it had not reached an extent that he did not dare to even battle him. For better or worse, he was also a ninth heaven celestial king himself. "Evil brat, don't go too far," he roared, each hand grabbing a streak of great Tao, which he smashed towards Ling Han. When one had reached the height of the ninth heaven, there was no need to use any kind of secret technique when fighting lower-level celestial kings. They only had to grab a streak of great Tao and smash it into their opponent. This was the overwhelming power of a superior cultivation level, and was always successful. Ling Han smirked. Body art fused with regulations, his every punch was filled with force, and he very soon suppressed Liu Qiuan. When those members of the Liu clan saw this, they were all involuntarily captivated. He is only in the 8th heaven. As an 8th heaven, he is already capable of suppressing Elder Qiuan, who is at peak stage 9th heaven. Then what about when he advances to the 9th heaven? Would he then be able to suppress a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Heavens! They all grabbed their heads in disbelief. This was a scene that they dared not believe. The impact was really too great on them. Damn! Damn! Liu Qiuan roared in fury. Previously, he had only heard descriptions of Ling Han's strength from the mouths of those celestial kings that had escaped to the Liu clan. Now that he was facing him himself, he finally realized just how strong Ling Han could be. He did not dare believe it. How could an 8th heaven celestial king be so strong? Liu Qiuan unleashed his full battle prowess, but he could not turn the situation around at all. No matter how much he struggled, it was useless. He was still being suppressed by Ling Han. "You have gone too far," he roared in fury, and drew his celestial tool. This was an umbrella. The moment it was spread open, the initially clear sky immediately became dark and stormy. Z, Z, Z. Lightning flashed, exuding a pressure of supreme might. "Die!" Liu Qiuan roared. Previously, more than 30 celestial kings had ganged up on Ling Han, but they had only wanted to capture him, and had not planned to take his life. In fact, they could not even inflict serious injury on him, so they naturally had not brought their celestial tools with them. But this time was different. Ling Han had already charged right up to their doors. Even if Liu Qiuan killed Ling Han with his celestial tool, the Martial Academy would not say anything. Clang! A bolt of lightning soared angrily, striking down on Ling Han. Ling Han stretched out a hand to grab it. Peng! Sparks flashed, turning into countless seals shattering, and bringing with them some blood. He had been injured. After all, his indestructible celestial king physique had only reached great accomplishment level, and he had not advanced to the level of divine metal yet. Taking on the might of a celestial tool with his bare hands still caused him slight injury. It was a light injury, he had only bled a little. Ling Han shook his head. If he reached the 9th heaven, with great Tao wrapped around his hands, there was definitely no way he would be wounded by taking this strike head-on. Unless he was directly struck by a celestial tool. In that case, he would still be injured. He was only at the 8th heaven at present, but his battle prowess could suppress a 9th heaven opponent. That was because of his domineering body art. In terms of regulations, he naturally was still no match for a 9th heaven. When they saw how Liu Qiuan had summoned his celestial tool, and wounded Ling Han with a single strike, those people of the Liu clan were all overjoyed, and they all erupted into loud cheers. Liu Qiuan also showed a hint of a smile. It looked like Ling Han was only so strong. He had previously been able to make such a great show of his vicious might only because he had a celestial tool, and the others had not. "You want to compete with me in precious tools?" Ling Han grinned. "Are you sure you want to do that? Humph, you have no idea about the power of our Liu clan yet. Every single 9th heaven celestial king would have a celestial tool, and if we unleash our might together, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would be no match for us." Liu Qiuan sneered. "You are only a mere 8th heaven celestial king, after all, so how could you know the frightening power that our Liu clan has accumulated through the epochs?" Crack, crack, crack. Bolts of lightning struck madly. Ling Han chuckled. This guy was really taking full advantage of the fact that he now had a slight upper hand. Did he really think that celestial tools were all that impressive? Then, let me give it a try. With a loud battle cry, Ling Han rushed forwards. Liu Qiuan waved his celestial tool in a sweep towards Ling Han, wanting to use his domineering might to suppress Ling Han. As for killing him, it would be better to force Ling Han to concoct alchemical pills after he captured him. This would have to depend on the decision made after the higher-ups discussed the matter. Shua. Cold light swept past. Liu Qiuan was instantly sent flying, and he shockingly discovered that a small cut had actually been left on the surface of his umbrella. Ling Han's hand held a rusted sword, and it practically looked like a shabby knife used to cut firewood. However, it was precisely this sword that was so rusty to the point of becoming scrap metal that had damaged his celestial tool in a single stroke. This is. Liu Qiuan's expression changed drastically. The celestial kings that had escaped had said that there seemed to be a supreme precious tool in Ling Han's possession. Liu Qiuan had always scoffed at this. How could it be that a puny eighth heaven celestial king would have such a treasure? Yet now, he had no choice but to acknowledge this fact. If it was not a supreme precious tool, how could it possibly be so powerful? Still continuing the competition? Ling Han smiled. Liu Qiuan could not speak. The Liu clan naturally had a supreme precious tool as well, but it was always by the side of the Grand Elder of the Liu clan, and accompanied him to the realm battlefield. Faced with an elite whose battle prowess surpassed peak stage 9th heaven, added with a supreme precious tool, how was he able to block this? He. So Grandmaster Ling has arrived. Please forgive us for not coming out to receive you. A loud laugh rang out, and 18 9th heaven celestial kings appeared together. This was the strongest power of the Liu clan. Originally, they had been watching the battle secretly, but when they saw how Ling Han had drawn the divine demon sword and unleashed its might, they naturally could no longer sit by and watch. Thus, they all walked out together. Ling Han stood, sword in hand. Enough with the nonsense. My request is very simple. Make reparations for my losses, and I will leave immediately. The present clan leader of the Liu clan, Liu Yanghe, stepped out, and said, previously, we had been deceived by a villain, and that was why we had made a move on Grandmaster Ling. This is indeed our mistake. Hearing these words, every member of the Liu clan felt their faces flush hotly. This was a humiliation. Since the Liu clan had been established, when had they ever suffered such a humiliation? They still had to apologize with a bowed head when someone had already charged right up to their doors. But who asked the members of the Liu clan to fail to live up to expectations? No other pseudo-heavenly venerate had appeared from their midst throughout several epochs. Otherwise, how could they be so tragic? Just look at the other noble clans. Take the Wang clan for example. Their Grand Elder was a third-tier heavenly venerate, and they had afterwards a prodigy by the name of Wang Andi, who had advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier after only cultivating tens of billions of years. He only had to take one more step, and becoming a true heavenly venerate was only a matter of time. Why did the Liu clan have no qualified successors then? We are willing to make reparations for Grandmaster Ling. Here are 3 pieces of divine metal. Please accept them, Grandmaster Ling. With a wave of Liu Yanghe's hand, a beautiful woman immediately walked out, bearing a tray in her hands. There were 3 pieces of metal of different colors on the tray, but they were all exuding a stunning brilliance. This garnered the envy of many junior descendants of the Liu clan. Even 8th heaven celestial kings would be filled with envy. This was divine metal. In the Liu clan, one would only be bestowed with divine metal upon becoming a 9th heaven celestial king. This was the rule. Ling Han did not even glance at it. Waving a hand dismissively, he said, "It's not enough." His life was just worth 3 pieces of divine metal. They had to be joking with him. Every member of the Liu clan was enraged. What are you acting so pretentious for? If it was not for the fact that the Grand Elder of the Liu clan is based at the realm battlefield, what right would you have to act arrogantly? Ling Han, don't go too far, a 9th heaven celestial king rebuked. Our Grand Elder is standing guard at the realm battlefield, participating in the resistance against Hysteria's invasion. It is because of his sacrifice that you were given room to grow, yet you are now committing violence in the Liu clan. Do you even have any conscience? Ling Han laughed. You are right. The Grand Elder of the Liu clan is fighting against hysteria. This kind of sacrifice and contribution is something I truly admire, but can this become the reason for you all to bully me, and use your superior status to humiliate me? Chapter 2692, 2692 Admitting Defeat. Chapter 2692, 2692 Admitting Defeat. 2692 Admitting Defeat. When Ling Han's words fell, every single member of the Liu clan was silent. Some were only intimidated by Ling Han's aura, and did not dare speak, but there were others that were really reflecting on the errors of their ways. Their Grand Elder's sacrifice had indeed won honor and glory for the Liu clan, but they were simply using the tactics of a bully to squander away the reputation and prestige of their Grand Elder. Liu Yanghe took a deep breath. 10 pieces of divine metal. Not enough. Ling Han still shook his head. 10 pieces of divine metal was still not enough. What in the world do you want? Just exactly what does Grandmaster Ling want in exchange for resolving this grudge between us? Liu Yanghe sighed. Open your treasure chamber, and allow me to take my pick, Ling Han said. Woof. 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 The large black dog immediately charged over from the distance. Treasure chamber, treasure chamber, treasure chamber. He was extremely excited. They would really be making great profits if they could rob the treasure chamber of a heavenly venerate. Impossible. Liu Yanghe immediately shook his head in refusal without a second thought. Ling Han raised the divine demon sword. Then I can only start a massacre here, right until there is no one who will stop me. He was determined to beat these great forces to the point that they developed a healthy fear of him, and would never dare to trifle with him again in the future. Otherwise, they would keep causing trouble for him. How irritating would that be? Liu Yanghe was furious, and wanted to immediately fight a battle with Ling Han, but when he saw the divine demon sword in Ling Han's hand, he swallowed the words that were just on the tip of his tongue. It was possible that the Liu clan would be obliterated if they fought. Though killing Ling Han would be just like child's play when the Grand Elder of Liu clan returned, how could Liu Yanghe bring himself to watch as the Liu clan that had flourished for several epochs declined in his hands? Lord Clan Leader, since it's a fight he wants, let's give him one. We of the Liu clan do not fear death. That's right. We are the descendants of a heavenly venerate. We definitely cannot bring shame to his prestige. The members of the Liu clan were all calling out. These were basically all young people, filled with youthful vigor and hot-blooded, but even more of them maintained their silence. The threat that Ling Han posed was genuine. If it was only for the sake of their pride and some material objects that the Liu clan was destroyed, that would really be too dumb. To speak of nothing else, if Ling Han eliminated all the members of the Liu clan, would he not be able to calmly open the doors of their treasure chamber, and take everything that was contained within? That would make their bloodshed even more insignificant. Agreed. After a very long time of silence, Liu Yanghe finally spat out this word, and after he said this, it was as if he had aged a few decades in an instant. He no longer had any of the pride that he had once had. Today, the Liu clan had suffered such a great humiliation, and as clan leader of Liu clan, it was natural that he would feel it the most. Clan leader. A considerable number of the members of the Liu clan fell to their knees, tears streaming from their eyes. They were bawling and weeping like no tomorrow, as if countless people had died. Ling Han did not feel the slightest bit of compassion. Whose fault was it when it was the Liu clan who had trifled with him first? Furthermore, if it were not for the fact that Ling Han had impressive strength, he would probably be working in turns in the various clans by now, forced to concoct alchemical pills. Who would be sympathizing with him then? Ling Han and the large black dog entered the city, and after Liu Yanghe opened the treasure chamber, they immediately began to rake in their spoils. According to the large black dog, he would throw caution to the wind and rob this place clean, but Ling Han was not as greedy. He only chose the most valuable items, such as celestial king tier great herbs, divine metal, and the natural treasures that were needed for the cultivation of the indestructible divine metal physique. As expected of a supreme noble clan, they truly had astonishing wealth. Ling Han was very pleased. After making a whole round, he walked out and said, "Clan leader Liu, goodbye. We will come back frequently in the future. The large black dog followed up with a parting shot, which caused Liu Yanghe to grab his chest in agony, so pained that he could not even speak. The man and dog left the Liu clan, and met back up with Wally. Linghan tossed a few pieces of divine metal to Wally as payment for his service. They set out again, and continued their raid. Zhao clan, Li clan, Sun clan, one after another, Heavenly Venerable Tier forces bowed down in submission to Linghan. Without a Heavenly Venerable Tier powerhouse in their clans, how would they be able to stop the present Linghan? After raiding the 6th clan, Linghan had reaped a good harvest. If the remaining 3 clans would also provide such profits, he would be just about able to upgrade his physique to indestructible divine metal physique. The next one is the Yun clan. Several days later, they arrived at the Yun clan. The Yun clan was not on the ground, in the mountains, or out at sea, but rather at the top of clouds. Multiple grand palaces were borne by fluffy white clouds, floating in midair. They shone with dazzling golden light. This was truly an amazing sight. However, when Linghan and company arrived, the Yun clan was also prepared. The doors of every palace were tightly closed, seemingly expressing that they did not welcome Linghan at all. As per usual, Wally did a preliminary clan to check out the real situation. There is a living being with vitality index that has surpassed 14,000, Wally stated. 14,000. No matter how strong a 9th heaven celestial king was, their vitality index would only be over 13,000. There was no way that they could break through the great barrier of 14,000. Pseudo-heavenly venerate. Linghan exchanged a look with the large black dog, and both exclaimed at the same time. Iron body, are you sure you did not see wrongly? The large black dog asked Wally. Wally's expression was filled with disdain. He refused to answer this kind of question that was merely a waste of his energy. Little Han, let's retreat, the large black dog said to Linghan again. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerate. That was a being that no celestial king could be comparable to. In theory, 10 peak stage 9th heaven celestial kings were enough to match a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and Linghan alone had fought more than 39th heaven celestial kings to the point that they fled in a panic. In that case, if Linghan were to face off against a pseudo-heavenly venerate, it should be Linghan's absolute victory. But this comparison could not be done in such a manner. The fact that Linghan could suppress so many 9th heaven celestial kings was due to the fact that he had a heavenly venerate tool in his possession. No celestial king could possibly match that, and they could only be suppressed by Linghan. But it was different for pseudo-heavenly venerates. Though they, too, could not stand against a heavenly venerate tool equally, it would not be a completely one-sided battle, either. After all, the divine demon sword had only reached the heavenly venerable tier in terms of quality. Its might was still too far off from that level. On the other hand, a pseudo-heavenly venerate had the advantage in power and speed, and this was completely enough to cancel out the advantage that a heavenly venerate tool gave Linghan. To have Linghan fighting a pseudo-heavenly venerate now, even if he had the help of the divine demon sword, was still quite tough. He should only be able to escape. Because he was outmatched in both power and speed, he could only be beaten passively. No matter how great the power of the divine demon sword was, what was the use if it could not hit its target? We fight. Linghan's fighting spirit sword. How are we supposed to fight? Wouldn't that be just delivering ourselves up to be defeated? The large black dog hurriedly pulled Linghan back, not wanting him to deliver himself up to be defeated. Linghan shook his head. You and Wally retreat first. I want to try myself out in battle. Firstly, he indeed wished to see just how far off he presently was from pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. In the future, when he faced He Yufeng again, he would also have some idea. Secondly, he was only a slight bit away from 9th heaven. He only needed a trigger to be able to cross over this new threshold. Perhaps that would be a little bit of pressure. This was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, that was enough to exert pressure on him. Brat, take care then. Grandpa Dog is leaving first. The large black dog had absolutely zero concept of the idea of loyalty, and he patted Linghan's shoulder. If you die, Grandpa Dog will come and pick up your body. Linghan laughed loudly. With a tap of his foot, he directly soared into midair, where he stood. Since the Yun clan still has a pseudo-heavenly venerate, what is the need to hide and cower? Come out and battle me. What a truly brazen brat. A relaxed voice rang out, and a figure walked over through the air. This was a young man in green robes. He was handsome and dashing, bearing an intimidating charisma. How do I address you, sir? Ling Han asked smilingly. With his present strength, though he was still no match for a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he was not too far off, either. He was completely capable of speaking as an equal to a pseudo-heavenly venerate. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,